Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 229. That's PEP or Planet Extra podcast. I am Chaz the Chadello, a host of Planet America on ABC Australia, and this is an official podcast of the ABC. So say hi to the Ombudsman for me. On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. If you're listening, you can find us on YouTube at the PEP with Chaz and Dr. Dave channel, and you can find highlights there too as well. And we're on Facebook at the Chaz from Planet America channel. You also find timestamps and show notes in our blurbs. And if you leave a comment under our current episode video, we are likely to see it. You can also tweet us or blue skies at PEPCHASDRDAVE. That's at PepChaz Dr. Dave. And if you want to chat to some fellow peppers, you can join our Discord server. It's on the screen now or on the blurb of the podcast. But if you want to contact me or Lockie the Lucky privately, why not email us? The address is producer@pepthepodcast.com. That address again is producer@pepthepodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe for all that peppy goodness. It all helps. And we are recording this at 2:10 p.m. on Friday afternoon. This is quite soon before releasing it. I haven't read anything from last night. Or it's 12:10 a.m. on Friday morning New York time. But for now, let's turn to the man who will never raise the stakes in any consequential views. I speak, of course, of Dr. Pepper himself, Dr. David Smith.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. David Smith. That's doctor as in PhD, not as in medical doctor, as I've had to tell very stressed flight staff a few times in my life. I am an associate professor at the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney, but I do not speak for either of those institutions. When I pep, you are purely getting my own opinions. Not any institutional viewpoint. Now, I suppose I should address the elephant in the room.
Dave, for those listening, referring to our caps, Dave has a cap that says...
It says, Dave was right about everything.
And I have a cap that says, Chaz was right about everything.
Now, there's a few reasons why I'm not wearing this. One, well, probably the most practical reason is my hair is extra fluffy today.
It's beautiful.
And my hair has a really tough time with hats at the best of times, especially with headphones on over the top. The whole ensemble is just not going to work. But also, this is a lie. And Chaz, I don't wear lies.
Wow.
With one exception. Hit the Tangent Treehouse button. In 2004, West Tigers was sponsored by an outfit called Radisson Maine. Have you ever heard of Radisson Maine before? Probably not, because they weren't real. Even though they were on the West Tigers jersey, even though they were on a big billboard on Leichhardt Oval, all they were two guys sitting in a basement in Cronulla thinking up scams. And they obviously thought of who is the most scammable target possible? West Tigers. So they claimed to be a massive global outfit that was into shipping, aviation, global real estate empire, shopping malls. As I said, two guys.
The scam involved them paying West Tigers for sponsorship?
They promised to pay West Tigers $500,000 or something like that, which was enough to get on the front of the jersey. No one ever saw a cent of it because they were not real. I think the only thing they ever did was manage to get a bunch of West Tigers players to go along to one of their real estate seminars. But, yeah, I don't think anyone ever bought any real estate from them because they didn't have any. But anyway, I've still got the Radisson Maine jersey, and that is a lie that I am proud to wear.
But out of curiosity, were their names Radisson and Maine?
No. They chose that to make it sound distinguished.
Sure.
Which, that's pretty good.
Sure. Look,
it's like Stratton Oakmont. Yeah.
I have to say, I love this hat. I'm never taking it off. Even if I had wonderful Labradoodle hair like yourself, I still would wear this hat. This is the best hat ever. And if Trump can do it, it's good enough for us. Okay. So I'm sure we look just as good as he does with that. Thank you, Lockie. Lockie's the one who put this together. Can I also say, oh my God, we're closer than I thought we were going to be, but because of the last few weeks that we kept on wearing matching clothes, I went out of my way to pick the ugliest shirt I have in my entire wardrobe, thinking there's no way that Dave would have a shirt like this. And
that is true.
And it's, look, Dave's shirt's not like mine, but it's closer than I thought it would be. Let's put it that way. So Dave's shirt's kind of this sort of grey-green kind of vibe, and mine's grey.
I thought it was blue.
Is that blue? Maybe I'm
Peppers, you decide.
Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do an internet thing where we're arguing about colours. Please, let's not do that. What are you grateful for, Dave?
I am grateful for the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs.
Go on.
Now, that might not be a household name to you. It apparently is not to Chaz.
Definitely not.
But they are actually a very distinguished college football program. Mm-hmm. I think that they won the national championship in 1935 or something like that. And despite being a relatively small private university, they often are in the national championship picture in college football. Okay, so why am I thankful for them?
Yes, why?
Well, because on the opening weekend of college football, they beat the living hell out of University of North Carolina. Okay. Why do I care about that? Because University of North Carolina made the senseless mistake of hiring Bill Belichick as their football coach. So Bill Belichick is the guy who won 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. He has the second highest number of wins in the history of the NFL. I think it became fairly clear after Tom Brady left the Patriots that Tom Brady was the reason for those Super Bowl wins, not Bill Belichick. I'm not just talking Michigan shit here. This is empirical evidence. Belichick never came close to winning anything again. Tom Brady went off and won another Super Bowl with a different team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Dave, we got to do this.
It's the Michigan Corner.
Tom Brady went to University of Michigan, you know, yeah. Although he couldn't actually secure the starting role. They made him start jointly with Drew Henson. But anyway, Bill Belichick, though he's one of these figures, he was such a fixture for so long that even his asshole tendencies became fetishized by the media. This was despite the fact that he was blatantly caught cheating. Now, okay, once again, speaking with the Michigan hat on, I can't completely condemn being blatantly caught cheating.
Do you play it again?
No. But I really dislike the American college football cult of the head coach. I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
It really undervalues what the players do, and it always positions the coach as being this very important father/God figure. And the subtext is always, these guys would be in jail if it wasn't for Coach Tough Ass teaching them the tough life lessons. Anyway, that's what UNC thought that they were getting with Bill Belichick. They are getting an old wash-up who just happens to have a much younger girlfriend who has been dominating all of the media coverage. Anyway, they got what they deserved in the form of a 41-7 beatdown. UNC, stop kidding yourself. You will never be a football school. You are a superb basketball school. You are the school of Michael Jordan and Dean Smith. You don't need to pretend to be anything else. Only a handful of universities have ever won national championships in both college football and college basketball. And guess what? You're not Michigan.
Can I say I agree with you entirely about the cult of the football coach. Apart from anything else, I feel like it distracts. The fact that it elevates all football coaches.
Yes.
It kind of distracts from and detracts from the genuine heroes of football coaching, the people who actually do something amazing, who actually are an inspiration to everyone.
Tell us
people who are deserving of our honour and our worship. People like Tommy Tuberville. So I agree with you, Dave. What I'm grateful for is this is one for Dave. I am grateful to share a podcast with the only other person in the world who didn't give a crap about Trump health stories for the last week and a half. I did not care at all, and I thought I was alone until I talked to Dave, and he cared even less. The two of us together really, really didn't give a shit. And to be clear, I understood why people were suspicious. Yeah. He does have those shocking bruises on his hands. He has even more shocking makeup on his hands if you look at that. Like, I get that.
And it is unusual for him to actually shut up for a few days.
That
admittedly is unusual.
Yeah, and the explanation for those bruises, by the way, made no sense. The explanation was that he shook people's hands so much.
Oh, I love it.
But he has bruises on both hands.
He's shaken too many hands.
Yeah, that's what he reckons.
That's because that's what it takes to make a peace deal, Chaz.
Yeah, the whole hands crossed, 2 hands at a time. Yeah. I get that. I get he has a long history of lying about his health.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the Harold Bornstein
Yes.
episode where he wrote, for those who don't know, he literally wrote his own doctor certificate for the 2016 election. And that doctor certificate said, if elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Let's not forget that. And the fact that he went quiet over Labor Day weekend, yeah, look, I don't care about that.
It was nice.
Well, that's exactly that. That's my thought. My thought is, yes, it's unusual, but haven't we all spent the entire, the last 6 months wishing Trump would just shut up for a few hours?
Yes.
And when he did shut up for a few hours and gave clear air, what did people do? They filled that clear air with rumors about Trump. What is wrong with you people? Just accept it. Just look that gift horse in the mouth and then look the other way. Look the other way. Anyway. And then I get when he put out this tweet, the never felt better in my life tweet. Yeah, that came off as a little bit cover-uppy. I get that. But still, folks, if he dies, he dies. Until then, let's not jump at shadows when there are 1,000 other things happening in America at any given time.
Let's face it, we should all be used by now to just utter physical decrepitude as the permanent state of the presidency.
We should. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry I wasted 60 seconds of this podcast talking about that. Let's move on. But that's what I was grateful for. Thank you, Dave. A couple of quick correspondences and then a big correspondence.
Yep.
Little one, Dr. Pepper correspondence. A lot of interest in my berries and cream mention, berries and cream Dr. Pepper mention in Elle's podcast. A lot of people know.
Is this advertising?
But no, it's not. You're about to find out. A lot of people noted that that Strawberries and Cream Dr. Pepper Zero is available in Australia, with the berries and cream I was saying wasn't. I know Strawberries and Cream is available, but I'm not going to say what I think of it because it's an ABC podcast, and I'm not going to advertise either positively or negatively. So you'll never know what I think of the Strawberries and Cream Dr. Pepper. But the supervisor will be pleased to hear there wasn't advertising for me to talk about berries and cream, because not only is it not available in Australia, but it's not available anywhere in the world. It's been discontinued. Bradley and Kevin pointed that out to me, and that was incredibly depressing. But thank you, Bradley and Kevin, for yucking my yum, so to speak. I loved it. I loved that so much when I was in America, and it no longer exists as of 2022. It is the curse, Dave, of having idiosyncratic taste that I am doomed to constantly see the things I love get discontinued. It all began back in the 80s with red tubes. I always love red tubes. Lockie won't know that red tubes ever existed. Most people, in fact, no one under the age of 40 would have a clue that there used to be two flavors of tubes.
Is there anything less substantial than a tube?
Red tubes was no less substantial, but it was so beautiful.
Red flavoured air.
It was so tangy.
Look,
oh, my God. Callum's got a big question for you, Dave. Do you think Trump's base is experiencing a kind of malaise similar to Democrats after Obama's 2008 and 2012 wins? Is this just a temporary lull before resources and pundits rally the GOP ahead of the next election? Or do you see deeper disillusionment, especially with younger Republicans, given voices like Fuentes and InfoWars? Would love your historical perspective on whether this parallels Obama's era and if a late rally is likely.
Yeah, look, my historical perspective on this is that these periods of malaise are becoming increasingly common because the motif of democratic politics, not just in the US, but in many places at the moment, seems to be you throw one party out because everyone's really pissed off at them, and then the next party comes in and disappoints everyone. And they disappoint their true believers most of all.
Yep.
And I don't have any actual evidence or data to back this up at the moment. My feeling is, though, that, as he says, especially among younger people, among younger men, there is this real sense of we were disappointed and we're disappointed and we probably should have known better. Who was this guy to promise us the world? Whoever is in power gives us a raw deal. I think that there is a bit of malaise kicking in. I think, that is visible in approval ratings. Yeah. I think there really is a bit of malaise, and it definitely parallels Obama. But projecting forward into the future, I'd say like the next 8 presidents is going to be the same.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a slightly different answer on that, Callum.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I mean, I agree with the people you're talking about. I don't think they're Trump supporters. They might have voted for Trump.
Yeah.
But I think that they were independents who voted for Trump. And those people who had faith in, like, you know, the broadcasters, I don't think they were ever Republicans. I think they were just bros who got into Trump, and they bought the hype, and they're now disappointed. And and the broadcasters are definitely disappointed with Trump. But I don't think they're Republicans. I think, as someone who reads a lot of Republicans, I think I have never seen a base that is happier with their president than the current Republican base is. I think they love the guy. Like, I mean, he spends his entire life playing to them, like in a way that Obama most definitely did not.
Definitely.
And, like he not just, it's not just his policies are all playing to his base, but even the way he talks plays to them. The topics he brings up, his tweeting is just reflecting back what he sees on Fox News from the base. And so I understand why you think that, Callum, because we highlight, but not just us, the news highlights these disaffected people. I don't think they're representative of the base. They are representative. The reason we talk about them is not because we're trying to distract you or lie to you. Those people are critical people to win an election. And Trump losing those people means that's a bad sign for Republicans winning in 2026 and in 2028. Absolutely. They're important people to try and keep happy, the independents. But they're not the base, and I don't think we should confuse it. And so I actually disagree. I don't think there is a malaise. I think the base
In terms
love it.
of the electoral question, though, can these people be trusted to turn out for the Republicans in 2020?
Are we talking about the independents?
No, we're talking about the base.
The base. Oh, okay. Well,
Can they be trusted to turn it? Because thing is, in the end, they can't ignore the fact that Trump disappoints them on a whole range of issues.
Yep.
They blame other Republicans for it.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, they maintain this kind of the ecstasy of Trump, but they hate the Republican Party. They blame congressional Republicans or the sort of whoever the designated scapegoat is in cabinet for whatever goes wrong. And I don't think that they're going to turn out for them.
Yeah, there's a real open question over whether the post-Trump Republican Party, like whether it holds it together or not.
Yeah.
About whether, because we don't know what's going to happen to Trump, whether Trump's going to be on the nose in 2 years' time or not. I still think he is going to be seriously on the nose. In which case it's just going to be like 2008 all over again. Yeah. But if he's not on the nose, does J.D. Vance or does Marco Rubio trying to pretend they're Trump, can they hold on to the Trump base? I'm not sure they can. I don't think they're going to buy it. And so...
No.
Yeah, that is an interesting question, but that's a different question to what you're asking, Callum.
Yeah. I think my impression is that Vance has slightly improved his standing with the Republican base.
Couldn't have been much worse.
Just by being sort of as orthodox Trump as possible. And by the way, as far as the wishful thinking about Trump's death goes, I don't know that people would be happy to see J.D. Vance,
Dave,
in the Oval Office.
I literally recorded a rave like 20 minutes ago for Planet America about this exact topic. You and I think the very similar things.
Because if J.D. Vance suddenly became president, his entire legitimacy would be based on doing as accurate a Trump impression as possible. He wouldn't suddenly revert to hillbilly elegy Vance. He wouldn't suddenly become... Curtis Yarvin Vance. He would just have to be trying to do his confused impression of Trump.
Keep going. So far, this is exactly what I said on Planet America. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Except it would be Trump with a concentration span.
Yeah, you're getting there, but keep going. Keep going.
No, that's
it. Is it? Almost. It was almost identical. Like the other thing which I added to it was I said, but the difference is, while you have all the same negatives, that you hate about Trump, like you would have even more so. Like JD Vance would be like a robot Trump.
Yes.
Just pumping out the maximum Trumpiness all the time.
Yeah.
You'd have none of the positives, because with Trump, there are unpredictable moments, unorthodox
That's true,
moments where he
yes.
does weird shit. You go, why did he do that for? With JD Vance, there'd be none of that. It'd
Yes.
just be all Trump all the time.
Yeah.
And there'd be no incompetence.
No.
They'd be like the Democrats ride off.
Hang on. No. There would be incompetence.
Not like Trump. The Democrats ride off his incredible incompetence, but JD Vance would not be like that at all. And so they would have any of the positives, but they'd have all the negatives they hate about Trump all the time. I promise you do not want JD Vance president for the next 2 or 3 years. So it's okay, it wasn't 100% what I said, but honestly, for those who watch Play America and this, I swear I recorded my rant before Dave opened his mouth.
It's okay. I'm sure they believe you.
But anyway, withholding correspondence from Harrison. I keep hearing you say Trump can't withhold funds if it's not related to the reason for those funds. Well, then why is the National Minimum Drinking Age Act by Reagan legal if it threatens to withhold 10% of a state's annual federal highway apportionment if they don't observe the national drinking age?
Yes. Now,
That's very clever.
If
Harrison.
I've been informed correctly, because I had a really good friend in Michigan from Louisiana. I watched a lot of college football with her. I think Louisiana was like the last holdout
Yes.
in this. And Louisiana is a state that, yes, its whole economy was based on underage drinking, but at the same time, it wasn't getting highway funds from anywhere else. So I think they were the last state that had to change to 21.
To answer your question, Harrison, I assume the logic is that it's a road safety regulation, and so it's relevant to the roads. But also, did anyone challenge us in court? I had a quick look. I couldn't find any challenge in court, and there might be a challenge somewhere. Nothing is illegal until it's challenged in court.
Because they were drunk 19-year-olds.
That's right. So I don't know. I know if it was challenged in court and the courts upheld it, I can understand their logic, but it's
a good point. I like the question.
It's a good point.
Yes.
I like where it comes from, Harrison. Inflation correspondence. Well, this is from last week from Elle.
Okay.
There's Elle herself. She did live correspondence asking me. I asked Elle about what prices have skyrocketed, and the Peppers came to the rescue. CC Bevell, who is American, hi CC, answered the answer to what skyrocketed is meat. Holy shit, meat has gotten so expensive. Fresh beef, fish, even things like bacon have gone up several dollars easy. Steaks for over $20 a pound. Shrimp for over $10 a pound. I can spend $80 just getting dinner and a couple of essentials without needing a buggy. I think she means trolley. So that is $20 a pound for steak. That's what, like $44 a pound, $44 a kilo for steak. That's like Australian prices. That's how expensive that is.
And Australian beef might be getting a 35% tariff.
Yeah.
So that'll just put it up even further.
But anyway, thank you for answering our question, CC.
Yes.
And before the big one,
sheep meat is, I've just got to stress, quite an important part of the American diet.
Cheap everything isn't important.
Well, yeah. I mean, and like when I lived there as a graduate student on $15,000 a year, right, that's not a huge amount of money, but I can never remember going short of meat.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that says something unfortunate about my dietary priorities, but it also says something about it was cheap.
Yeah.
Like I could eat actually Australian and New Zealand imported lamb far cheaper in the US than I could here.
I can tell you, as a very poor student, I wasn't having a lot of meat. I'll tell you what I was having.
What?
A lot of chips and gravy. dollar chips and gravy. Massive bucket of chips and gravy. That's what I was having. Breakfast, lunch, dinner of champions. But anyway. Flag burning correspondence. Last little one before the big one. Dreadlord says, as a matter of interest, according to the United States Department of Defense, the official way of destroying an American flag is to burn it.
Oh, that's, wow.
And he quotes them. The flag, when it is in such condition that it is no longer a fitting emblem for display, should be destroyed in a dignified way, preferably by burning. Now, he says, admittedly, this is for worn-out flags, but it's kind of funny anyway. It is funny, Dreadlord, but also It's interesting. And I'll tell you why. Because I was having a read about this.
Yep.
The original flag burning statutes before 1989 were totally across that point. The Texas statute, the one that was relevant to the Supreme Court case, actually made it a crime to burn or otherwise desecrate the flag, quote, in a way that the actor knows will seriously offend one or more persons likely to observe or discover his action. And that offence wording was there for exactly that reason.
So, look, if you want to burn a flag in your own toilet,
it's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
As long as there's no one else in that toilet who's going to get offended by it.
Well, someone could discover that action later on. Remember, it's one more person's likely to observe or discover his action. So the toilet one might not be safe. But my point is
Just
this.
imagining someone
walking
into a toilet and going, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen in a toilet."
If you're under 25, you probably tweet about it while you're Insta it while you're burning your flag in your toilet, and then everyone will know about it. But the irony is that came off very crotchety. The irony is that's what makes it illegal. Because if the law was content neutral, it would treat all flag burning the same way, whether it causes offence or not. The fact that it's only illegal to burn flags in the Texas statute in a way that offends people proves that the message that the statute was outlawing, not the act of burning the flag. And outlawing a message violates the First Amendment. So actually, the whole reason for its illegality is because of your observation, Dreadlord. So there you go. That's why I brought it up. Now, the big correspondence, which is kind of our first topic.
Okay.
We've had a number of people asking us, I won't say all their names, there's a lot of them, asking us to talk about that big registration article about the Democrats in the New York Times about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I've been meaning to bring it up. I haven't had the time, but since we did two PEPs this week, I have the time.
Yep.
And while we're at it, Dave, let's give them some value because it wasn't just that article. There have been 3 different articles that have come out in the last few weeks, like henpecking the Democrats about how they're screwed and all their problems. Let's go through all of them.
Okay.
Go for it.
So let's start with the New York Times article looking at drops in Democratic voter registration since 2018. Democrats, as the article acknowledges, still have the edge in voter registration overall, but it's a lot smaller than it used to be. Republicans are picking up a lot of registrations in states that used to be very close but are increasingly looking deep red. And a lot of people within the Democratic Party are warning that this is a real problem. Now, I think that it is a real problem, but I also think that the article, to a large degree, missed the point. Partly because it's focused on fluctuations over the last few years.
Can I say, if you were interested in the article, it's in the homework.
Yes.
We've got an archived version for you.
Yeah. The graphic that actually tells the biggest story, I think, is from this NBC story. This is taking a much longer time frame. In 2000, Democrats had 44% of registered voters.
Yep.
That is now 37%. Okay, so that's a 7% drop. Republicans had 33%. That is now 31%. Independents had 23%. That is now 32%.
Right.
So the big story here over the long term is big independent gains, mostly at the expense of Democrats.
Yes.
Okay. And look at how high that is in 2000, 44%. That wasn't the height of Democratic voter registration by any means. No. Okay. The big story here is the long-term hollowing out of the Democratic Party. And this is not just about winning the next midterm election or the next presidential election. Okay. You can win presidential elections without having an edge in voter registration. Republicans have done it plenty of times.
Well, they just did it.
Yes, exactly. Right. So, I mean, as voter registration does not equal vote, but it tells us something very important because think about the fact that from 1955 to 1995, Democrats held the House of Representatives continuously. That was despite facing some absolute electoral juggernauts at the presidential level. Okay, so that was despite Eisenhower's wipeout of the Democratic Party in 1956, despite Nixon's even bigger wipeout of the Democrats in 1972, and Reagan's equally huge wipeout of the Democrats in 1984. All of those elections, Democrats came away with the majority in the House of Representatives through 12 years of Reagan and Bush, through 8 years of Nixon, through 8 years of Eisenhower. They never lost that majority in the House of Representatives. Okay, so why did they have that? Because even if they were losing elections at the national level, people felt that there was some benefit to voting for a Democrat for Congress. Now, that says a lot about the level of local organisation that Democrats used to enjoy. And that would have been reflected in party registration numbers at the time, when Democrats had huge edges over Republicans.
It was also about what being a Democrat meant back then,
yes,
versus being a Republican.
Yes,
like that there are long-term differences in the definition, changes in the definition.
Absolutely, yeah, there were. But the organisation was a very important thing. Now, the principal groups that were affiliated with the Democratic Party at that point were unions. Okay, so unions have a democratic structure. They saw the Democratic Party as aligned, for the most part, with their interests. Unions gave workers a degree of power because of the ability to strike. They gave the party a lot of organisational muscle, and they also gave the party the sense that workers should be Democrats. There were other organisations as well, but unions were by far the most important part of the Democratic Party organisation. But to be clear, once again, there was an actual party there, right? County-level parties mattered. Precinct-level ward captains mattered. State-level parties mattered. The National Party never matters that much, but all of these local and state party organisations actually mattered. They had very close relationships with unions. They were able to seriously mobilise people. They had people who had lifelong loyalty to the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You do not see that kind of level of organisation anymore. I've posted an article in the homework by Philip Rocco, who's a political scientist, called The Hollowing Out of the Democratic Party. Now, he makes the point, and we've made this point as well, that both parties have been organisationally hollowed out. That is, party organisations have largely evaporated. Both parties now are these loose coalitions or loose constellations of advocacy organisations, media allies, and wealthy donors. That does not matter so much for the Republican Party. The Republican Party has never needed the kind of organisation that the Democratic Party did, because the Republican Party has traditionally represented and still represented economic elites who don't need, really, that much collective action in order to get their interests done. Okay. For the Democratic Party, though, this really matters. Republicans have been able to retain a fairly coherent ideology, especially when it's clustered around this charismatic figure, even with a completely hollowed-out party organisation. In fact, it was the hollowed-out party organisation that enabled Trump to take it over. But you see what Trump has done both in his first and second term. The big thing that he works to secure is corporate tax cuts and tax cuts for the wealthy. Okay? Even if the rich are not uniformly in his corner, he's uniformly in their corner. Yes, so the Democrats have been completely hollowed out organisationally. Unions are nowhere near either as powerful or as numerous as they used to be. And the point that Rocco makes is that the coalition that supports the Democratic Party now it's largely a coalition of policy beneficiaries. Okay, so it's beneficiaries of things like Social Security and Medicaid, or of legal regimes like the Voting Rights Act. And he points out that these are largely, the organisations that represent these people are mostly not mass membership organisations. They're certainly not small d democratic organisations. These are mainly very professionalised organisations made up of lawyers, academics and policy experts who they may in many ways be pretty effective advocates, and they can sometimes even be quite effective at elections. But an election campaign is not the whole game. One of the ways that the Democratic Party has really suffered by losing its whole organisational base is that it can't actually press for democratic priorities when there is a Democrat in the White House or when Democrats have majorities in the House of Representatives and the Senate. If anything, I felt frustrated that that New York Times article contributed to the problem by suggesting that the only point was winning elections. That's not the only point. When you lose that kind of party organisation, you lose the ability to pressure your own party for the things that you want and that your base needs. And the point that Rocco is making is that there is basically nothing that is meaningfully tying the people who benefit from policies to the Democratic Party. Yes, there are these organisations that advocate for those policies, but he points out, like the AARP, pensioners can just as easily be mobilised by right-wing organisations for right-wing purposes as they could be mobilised for the AARP to maintain Social Security benefits. There's no kind of continuous organisation going on there. People aren't regularly turning up to meetings. People are not regularly in contact with politicians or with political organisers. There's no actual political organisation going on there, especially when you consider that the American way of doing welfare is what Suzanne Medler called the submerged state. It's all done by tax breaks. So it's never clear to people what the connection is between policymakers and policies, let alone between parties and policies. The Democratic Party has been completely hollowed out.
I think that is an excellent point, and I definitely didn't want to step on it because I think everything you said is absolutely correct, and I think that is evidenced by what you said.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should back over the point I was trying to make before about the fact that the people who now call themselves Republican in the South, no one in a million years could imagine voting for the Democrats. 70 years ago, they were exactly the same for the Democrats. And it took 50 years for those people to stop being registered as Democrats.
That's right.
Like North Carolina was a 50-50 state. It's been a 50-50 state for a while now. It was a 50-50 state in the year 2000.
Yeah.
And the Democrats had a 30-point advantage on registration. That wasn't because they were so much better organised in 2000. They were already well on their way to be hollowed out at that point in time. It's just because people's grandparents were Democrats, their parents were Democrats, they were Democrats in terms of registration, but they'd stopped voting Democrats for decades before
they'd stopped
then.
voting for Democrats at the national level.
Yes.
This is the thing. So 3 of the 4 states that used to have, when I say used to, I'm talking about 10 years ago, used to have the highest Democratic Party registration were West Virginia, Louisiana, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
Now, those are all states which have been consistently red at the national level for a long time, but at least in the case of Louisiana and Kentucky, still routinely elect Democratic governors. And in West Virginia, until very recently, elected Democratic senators. Now, those were states with very high Democratic Party registration because there was still some benefit to being a Democrat. You were still tied in some way to old-fashioned networks of patronage.
Yeah.
And at times, reading Philip Rocco's article, I'm almost wondering if there's a bit of a nostalgia for the party as patronage machine, right? So one of my favourite books ever about American politics, I'm sure I've put this on the reading list, is William O. Riordan's Plunkett of Tammany Hall, which is a collection of speeches by a New York politician called George Washington Plunkett from 1906. He was part of the whole Tammany Hall Democratic Party machine, and he gives all of these speeches on how important patronage was for democracy. So people are never going to get involved in politics unless they get something out of it. And the natural order is, you help me win an election, I get you a government job.
Yeah.
He was completely open about his corruption. He said there's a difference between honest graft and dishonest graft. Basically, honest graft is when everybody gets something out of it. Like, I know that the government wants to buy this land in order to build a park, so I buy it first to make a bit of a profit. He's put that I saw my opportunities and I took them.
Yeah.
Right. So there are many things not to mourn about the passing of this age. He absolutely hates the idea of an unbiased civil service. He says this is the worst thing because this is just putting a bunch of college boys into positions of trying to serve the people, which they wouldn't understand at all. Yeah. Now, look, I've got to say I'm naturally a kind of a clean government neutral civil service type myself. Would have been known as a
guilty
as a progressive back in those days. But the point that someone like Rocco is making is that when your whole outlook on politics becomes very technocratic, when your party gets reduced to the status of a bunch of advocacy organisations just advocating for certain policy outcomes and kind of indifferent to the political struggle behind that, people lose any sense of the political fight. Mm. And certainly what you had in Tammany days was a very clear sense of friend and enemy in politics, and a very clear sense of, if I want to get something out of politics, I've got to join this party and be a part of it and participate in it. Now, as I said, there's a lot about those days that you just would not want back, the corruption and the inefficiency and all of that. But in places where high Democratic Party registration survived, it was because there were old-fashioned networks of patronage keeping it alive, even as those states went deep red.
Fair enough. Okay, so they're the long-term trends. But then I think there's also the short-term trends that those registration numbers in that article was 2019 to 2024. Mm-hmm. So it's under the Biden administration. Like, as a general rule of thumb, registrations tend to go against the ruling party.
Yes.
Like America always has this counterbalance kind of thing happening. And we've spoken at length about how terrible an advocate Biden was for anything for his cause. I'm not surprised at all that registrations in the short term were rolled against Biden as well. The thing which you said they missed the point. I agree. I think there's another point that they missed, which you touched on but didn't really hammer home. So I'll hammer it home now, which is if we look at their graph, like the graph you had there, Dave, was showing how overall registrations have changed over time, which is, I think, the more important graph, to be honest. Yeah. But let's look at their graph that they were running with. And this was showing year by year how registrations change, not overall registrations, but each year how they change, right? Okay, and you can see that in the last 7 years, Republicans have taken a bigger share each year of the registrations. Democrats have taken a smaller share. Okay, so part of the reasons for that are what you said, those long-term trends. Part of the reasons are the short-term trends I just identified. But what they are ignoring is, to me, the elephant in the room, which is that both those numbers are below 30.
Yes.
Right? Which means there's a lot of people missing from that. Now, we should say that this is just the 30 states that have partisan registrations. Yep. 20 don't. So this is not the whole of America. But do your maths, and you got 24% of new voters nationwide in 2024 were Democrats. 29% were Republicans, which means 47% registered without a party or with a minor party. And that, I think, is the more interesting development.
And this brings us to another really interesting point, which is party systems worldwide are in decline or collapsing. Richard Rose, who is one of the major kind of chroniclers of British politics, in his estimate, if a UK general election was held tomorrow, Reform would end up with more than 400 seats. Now, there's a long way to go until that election, but he is currently writing a book called The End of the British Party System, A Guide to the 2029 Election. So that's where he thinks it's going.
Yeah.
In Australia, we're not witnessing a collapse of anything, But in 2016, for the first time, more than 25% of people didn't vote for one of the major parties in their primary vote. And that number is now well north of a third. That primary vote is dropping every year, despite the fact that Labor actually made gains in the last election. In other places that you look at that are sort of familiar democracies, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, you're seeing this increasingly chaotic picture. Well, maybe not Italy because that was always chaotic. That's just part of the national brand. But in many cases, it's no surprise that party systems which have been around for 100 years, featuring parties that are based on century-old industrial cleavages, that people no longer find them satisfying. And in most countries, what happens is new entrants are taking massive share of the vote. What's happening in the US, though? Well, as we have made this point many times before, the US has the world's most unforgiving two-party system because of the fact that it is single-member district, winner takes all the way down. So even though fewer and fewer people are registering with the major parties, more and more people are registering with independents or minor parties, their vote share is not dropping. No, if anything, it's increasing.
And I'd go further to say when this article's talking about as if Democrats have a problem, Democrats and Republicans are irrelevant.
Yeah.
The independents are going to be the ones who decide the election. Like, it just doesn't matter how many Democrats or Republicans.
But they don't have anyone to vote for apart from Democrats or Republicans. So what we're seeing is the decline of the party system in a country that is stuck with its party system. Yeah. That is not a good place to be.
Dave, do you want to talk about the Electoral College article?
I want you to talk about the Electoral College article.
All right. Basically, this article was looking at, I'll put in the homework as well, this is looking at projections for what will happen to Electoral College votes after the next census. And it essentially projects that California is supposed to lose 3 Electoral College votes, Illinois lose 2, New York lose 1, Rhode Island lose 1, Minnesota lose 1, Pennsylvania lose 1. And they have to go somewhere. Where are they going? Arizona, Georgia, Idaho, Utah all gain 1 vote. Florida gains 2. Texas gains 3. It doesn't take much imagination to see that is going to favour Republicans. And the reason why that's going to happen, by the way, is every single census, they reapportion the Electoral College votes to represent the population, where the population is.
Yes.
And it just so happens that the red states are growing and the blue states are shrinking. And this article is posited that this is a problem for the Democrats because they will no longer be able to, if they won the blue wall, they will not win the election. If they win the blue wall and Arizona, they won't win the election. They'll need to win the blue wall and Arizona and Georgia and Nevada. They'll need to basically win all. If you think about Biden and Harris, all the seats they were going for, they're going to sweep them. They're going to win all of them. Maybe they don't need North Carolina. But other than that, they need to win every single seat they're going for, every single state they're going for to win the presidential election in the 30s.
Yeah.
And this article is positing that this is a massive issue for them. Now, my personal view is, while that is an issue, and it's an issue we've talked about before, we saw this coming years ago. I don't think that's their biggest problem. I am going to remind you of something else that I said years ago, which I think we'll be reading articles in the New York Times about over the next few years, which is what their biggest problem is the Senate. Because even with the Electoral College changes, at least they're loosely based on population.
Yes, yeah.
The Senate is not based on population, so you get no advantage for being California. Right? And I can tell you the Democrats rely an awful lot on the numbers of people in California and New York.
Yes.
When you take that away, this is what you get. You get the fact that Democrats are only viable in 26 states.
Yes.
So they need to run the table for 6 straight years to ever win the Senate.
Yes.
If they lose more than 2 seats in 6 years in states they are even competitive in. I don't mean states where there's a blue states or states where they have an advantage. I'm saying states where they're even competitive, then they can't win the Senate.
That's right.
That is a much bigger problem. That's when you start becoming an untenable party. And the reason for that is because if you think about the last 12 years, The Democrats have gained the possibility of winning in Georgia and Arizona. Mm-hmm. They're the two states that they wouldn't have considered winning 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. But now they go, yeah, we're competitive in them.
Yes.
They've lost touch from competitive to no chance in Ohio, Iowa, Florida, Missouri, Montana.
Yep.
That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So they've lost 6 potential senators in 12 years. And I reckon you could probably add a few more in there, but I was trying to be generous. Mm. So they need to find, and by the way, I'm not even talking about places like West Virginia and North Dakota where they recently had senators as well.
Yeah.
Like people might forget that. I mean, they know Joe Manchin, they all remember, but North Dakota, they had a senator there only like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So they've lost probably double-digit potential senators in the last decade or so.
Yes.
They need to find states. I ask you, where are those states? What's the next state?
Puerto Rico.
Well, apart from creating states,
Canada,
Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, apart from creating states, but ironically, they can't do that because they don't have the Senate.
Yeah.
Like they needed to do that in 2008.
Yeah.
Too late now.
Too late.
So I could see, I mean, look, if I was the Democrats, I would be picking 2 or 3 states and I'd be investing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into trying to convert those states.
Yeah.
Utah.
Yes.
Texas. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of states where you go, okay, we're not competitive there, but if we spend a decade investing there, we might become competitive. Yeah. They just need to have 27 or 28 states. Yes. They can't get by on 26. And God forbid if they lose another state, that's the direction they're moving. They just become a non-viable party and America becomes a one-party country.
Yes.
Which is a problem.
So I agree with you about, the Electoral College, I thought, even though it makes it sound very implausible, they've got to run the board in all of these states, it happened in 2020.
Yeah.
Like, it could happen again. And the reason...
Yeah, Biden would still win in the 30s.
Yeah. The reason for that is that it's not as if new people just suddenly appear out of nowhere in red states and become red state voters and disappear from blue states. Mm-hmm. When you have population moves from blue states to red states, that's generally driven by immigration.
Yep.
And sure, some of them are Ben Shapiro, but not all of them are Ben Shapiro. Mm. A lot of them are people who retain their voting habits when they move. Mm. And so that's, but you're absolutely right. The Senate is the big problem. Mm. Yes. Okay. So the third
go for it.
Article.
Yes.
Okay. So this was you could just see the smugness radiating off this article. This is the Third Way article. Like, dear Democrats, these are the words that you shouldn't use.
Yep.
Going on to list a bunch of terms that I have never heard a Democratic legislator use. I have never heard a Democratic campaigner use. I've never heard a Democratic Party ad use. I've never heard a Democratic operative use. Who are they talking about?
Can I give you a stat?
Yep.
Political scientist Lindsay Cormack.
Yes.
Did a content search on the DC inbox archive of 208,000 official congressional e-newsletters from 2010 to today.
Yeah.
12 of the 45 words that they mentioned never appeared once.
There were terms in there that I have never heard of.
And most of the others were used 5 or fewer times.
Yeah. Some of those terms are terms that you will hear basically as part of the technical vocabulary of social science or the humanities.
Yeah, they're university words, they're not Democrat words.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that most people know about these words because of right-wing media.
Yes.
And this brings us to a very important point about what I would call the political messaging class.
Sorry, hang on. I should just say some of these words because they're just being very vague.
Okay.
I've got the 45 words in front of me. I'll roll through. Maybe not all of them, but I'll just start. And you can stop whenever.
Yes.
Privilege, violence, like environmental violence, dialoguing, othering, triggering, progressive stack, centering, holding space, subverting norms, systems of oppression, critical theory, cultural appropriation, postmodernism, Overton window, heuristic, radical transparency, small d democracy, barriers to participation, stakeholders, food insecurity, housing insecurity, birthing person, inseminated person, pregnant people, chest feeding, heteronormative, patriarchy, Latinx, intersectionality, minoritized communities, justice involved, carceration, involuntary confinement. There you go.
Now, I used the term small d democracy earlier because that was to distinguish it from the Democratic Party, organisations with a democratic
You need to
structure.
stop doing that.
Need to stop it. But this is the thing about the political messaging class, which is what the third way represents. These people have been the dominant voice in the Democratic Party for the last 35 years. To the extent that the Democratic Party is in trouble now, it's because of these third way types who, in the end, have generally been the dominant voices in election campaigns. Kamala Harris's campaign never came close to using any of these words, but they did use a lot of third way words and third wave concepts. In terms of where this tendency in the Democratic Party comes from, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but basically it really came to prominence with Bill Clinton. Okay, so Bill Clinton's diagnosis of what was wrong with the Democratic Party was it's too beholden to the groups, all of these different special interest groups. Most notably, there's no way of avoiding this, African Americans. And the fact that African Americans were making demands that the justice system should be less brutal. Bill Clinton was having none of that. In 1992 primaries, he actually paused his campaign to go back to Arkansas when he was the governor to preside over the execution of a man, Ricky Ray Rector, who was so mentally disabled that he didn't realize he was being executed. Okay? That was Bill Clinton's approach.
That was not woke.
That was not woke. Now, all of this is glorified in a terrible movie, but one that is very revealing about third way mindset called The War Room.
Yeah.
The War Room is this hagiography of James Carville and George Stephanopoulos, where you get to see them wandering around in double denim, offering a lot of sage campaign advice and never believing in anything. Yeah. This is the most important point. You will get through that entire movie, and at one point you'll hear James Carville on election night making an incredibly vague reference to now children will have better schools as a result of Bill Clinton being elected. Yeah. Like, you don't know what these people believe and you don't care because they don't care.
This is where the phrase, it's the economy stupid.
It's the economy stupid comes from, right? So this was really the rise of the messaging class. And ever since then, it's all been about, how can Democrats get the message right? Right, because everybody recognizes that Democratic policies are always more popular than the Democratic Party itself. Okay, and so this is where the messaging class comes in to get the right message across. You can never, if you're a Democrat, actually beat the Republicans on messaging.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it like, I feel like they're missing the point here.
Yeah.
Which is that the Republicans have a propaganda network.
That's right.
The Democrats don't.
Yes.
Now, that's not me saying that there is no bias in the news media.
No.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that the obvious left bias that certain publications have is not coordinated.
No.
In the same way that the Republican megaphone is.
Yes.
The Republican megaphone is super coordinated. Like, there's no way you can replicate that.
No.
And the reach of the Republican megaphone is complete in large sectors of America.
Yes.
And and once again, you can't replicate that on the other side. And that's just a fact. And unless the Democrats find a way around that, I don't know how they do.
No.
That all the messaging in the world doesn't matter if people don't hear it.
Yes.
But
also, they can't match the viscerality of Republican messaging, right? In 1988, one of the things that brought Mike Dukakis undone was this terribly racist ad about Willie Horton, who'd been paroled from a Massachusetts prison and then gone on to kill someone. That was just completely emphasizing the blackness of Willie Horton. And the message was very clear. Democrats are the party of African American interests. This is what will happen if they take the White House. Now, it didn't matter how hard Bill Clinton completely cracked down on the whole African American community, inaugurated a massive new era of mass incarceration, building on what George H.W. Bush had done, implemented welfare reform that brought a lot of people to the brink of destitution, if not outright destitution. Democrats will still always be seen as the party of African American interests. There's a friend of mine who I don't think he's a pepper, but if he's listening,
He's
hello.
a pepper. He's a pepper. I know he's a pepper.
Friend of mine ran in a Democratic primary for Congress in Illinois, but I remember him pointing out, if you just watch local affiliate news anywhere in America with the sound off, you will realize how little control the Democratic Party has over messaging. And this is because media operates in shorthand about which groups are associated with which parties, right? Democrats are always going to be the party of racial minorities, gays, trans people, women. Okay? That is media shorthand. Now, often this media shorthand can be quite unfair to the right. I will completely acknowledge that. Like media shorthand, for example, does not acknowledge the existence of people who are, say, conservative Christians and feminists at the same time. And I've met enough of them to know that they are out there. They have no role in media discourse. But media shorthand is particularly kind of imprisoning to Democrats. And it doesn't matter how many times they throw African Americans or throw trans people or homeless people or prisoners or any other disfavored group under the bus, Democrats are still going to be the party of those people, right? It doesn't matter what kind of messaging they try to put across. One of the things I've noticed recently about the messaging discourse is how much it is driven by a freak out about Zoran Mamdani. Now, ironically, Zoran Mamdani is someone who's actually found a message that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about affordability.
Yeah.
There was an article in Politico that had the headline, "Republicans are giddy about Zoran Mamdani," right? It was this article saying Republicans are very excited about the prospect of making Zoran Mamdani the face of the Democratic Party. They interviewed a lot of people about this. They didn't interview a single Republican. They interviewed about 12 different Democratic centrists who said, Republicans are giddy about Zoran Mamdani. Yes. So a lot of this the current wave of the messaging thing is being driven by holy shit, we've got absolutely nothing to offer. And this socialist, this Muslim socialist from New York is going to win the mayoralty. Yeah. And he's going to become the face of the Democratic Party. And people are not going to be satisfied anymore by us suggesting, well, we can work together with Republicans to come up with great solutions like replacing Social Security with crypto. That's what's going to win the suburbs of Long Island, which is all we care about. Yeah. So look, at the moment, Democratic centrists are in a state of crisis. They are projecting that crisis onto the Democratic Party at large. Joe Biden is their failure, and it's going to be one that they are going to own forever. But I would remind them, as I've done many times on PEP, when Joe Biden won the 2020 election, he did it while taking a knee for Black Lives Matter while wearing a COVID mask. Joe Biden in 2020 was woke as fuck.
Yes.
He was about as woke as it was possible for a 70-something-year-old white man to get, and the Democrats won that election with 7 million popular votes. Okay, electoral circumstances come, electoral circumstances go. Messages come, messages go. But to get back to the earlier point, the much bigger problem that we are looking at is the hollowing out of the Democratic Party. Until that gets addressed, messaging is still going to remain really a surface thing.
That was a thorough treatment of the topic. Let's get to an update on tariffs. Now, I told you my theory that Trump going straight to the Supreme Court to appeal this tariff loss. And court kind of disproved Kagan's fears in the case that Trump might not appeal when he loses to cut his legal losses.
Yep.
Nick writes in, Chaz, surely it's at least as likely that Trump and co. are simply overconfident in the Supreme Court's pliability rather than Kagan's point being wrong. I'm not sure what's going through Trump's head. I suspect you're right, Nick, but it still means that Kagan's fear has not been borne out, at least so far, which was just the point I was making. You might argue that this is more a problem for the next president, though. Maybe. I don't know. I just want to flag that because I thought it was an intelligent response from Nick.
Yeah, I think it is a good response. I don't think they're overconfident because of the arguments that they are making.
They're not making legal arguments.
They know they don't have a legal leg to stand on. They're threatening catastrophe.
Yeah. They're just trying to pressure the judiciary. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, which I think that does not indicate confidence in the legal argument.
Have you seen Peter Navarro?
No.
If we lose the case, President Trump is right. It will be the end of the United States.
You can't get much more extreme than that.
The end of the United States.
Trump keeps on raising the stakes high as well. He tweeted out, more than $15 trillion will be invested in the USA, a record. Much of this investment is because of tariffs. If a radical left court is allowed to terminate these tariffs, almost all of this investment and much more will be immediately cancelled. In many ways, we would become a third world nation with no hope of greatness again. Time is of the essence, President DJT. Now, you might think it's a bit much to suggest $15 trillion is on the line, but the White House literally insinuated in this tweet here that they've already created $8 trillion in tariff revenue. Already in a few months. Miraculous tariffs. Also, note that it also says hundreds of thousands of new jobs. The total non-farm employment this year has increased by 597,000 compared to 1.1 million jobs over the same period last year. So I'm not sure it's a huge brag. But, I mean, they are just going absolutely nuts here. So you're right. There's just no attempt at a legal argument.
No. And in terms of where these numbers coming from, because we've gone from 8 trillion to 15 trillion, I think I heard 17 trillion at some point today.
Yeah,
Okay. So obviously this is not all tariff revenue. In terms of actual tariff revenue, that's at $160 billion or something?
That's total tariffs.
Yes.
For the relevant tariffs to this court case, it's $96 billion.
Yes. Yeah. So what he's talking about in terms of these trillions are what I can only term Radisson Main investments. These meaningless, non-binding promises that would need to be ratified by national legislators, but that are actually often just talking about private decisions that they somehow expect investors to make. Yeah. This is not actual money.
Definitely not. $15 trillion.
Yeah. This is being invited to a real estate seminar with a bunch of NRL players.
Also, while we're here, I need to respond to El Hardy's question last week. Who appointed the judges? She asked, are they MAGA judges? Are they old school Republican judges? Turns out there were no MAGA judges on the panel on either side.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it was the Republican appointed judge who ruled against Trump was from George H.W. Bush.
Yep.
The Republican judges who supported Trump were appointed by George W. Bush.
Yep.
No Trump judges, okay? Another question that we've been talking about is about paying back tariffs. I continue to be highly confused.
I've nenever got my head around this.
About how exactly the administration is expected to pay tariffs back if they're found to be illegal. I mean, like, the impact of the tariff is spread out between the retailers and the importers and especially the consumers buying the products, as we keep on saying.
Yes.
So how do you refund consumers? I don't understand. How do they even find the people who bought those products?
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible. It's just too complicated. On the other hand, while I'm so tempted, I know you've gone down this path, Dave, I'm so tempted to just write it off and go, of course they're not going to have to pay it back. The idea of tariff compo does seem to be based on something, because Wired ran an article about how Cantor Fitzgerald, for those who don't know what that is Treasury Secretary Howard Lutnick's firm, which he has distanced himself from while he's a Treasury Secretary.
Yep.
It's now supposedly run by his 20-something-year-old son. Sure. What are you doing, Lockie? Why aren't you running a billion-dollar company?
I am.
PEP. Oh, of course it is. Yes, that's right. Yes, Cantor Fitzgerald apparently are aggressively buying up the rights to potential tariff refunds at 20 to 30 cents in the dollar. So why are they doing that? You'd think Cantor Fitzgerald, of all companies, would have the inside word as to what can be expected to be happening with the tariffs.
Yes.
They've got to have some reason for them to be spending millions, if not tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, buying up the rights to these tariff refunds.
Yeah.
If there's no chance they're going to happen. So there must be at least a chance. Surely.
Yeah.
Even though I don't understand how, there must be a chance. I spoke to...
I don't know that Howard Lutnick's company making a crazy bet is a priori evidence that there's a chance.
I understand. Look, I spoke to Michael Strain today for Planet America, and I asked him. I didn't put this in the show.
Michael who?
Michael Strain, the
right.
American Enterprise Institute.
Sorry,
economist.
I thought you were talking about Michael Strahan, the former New York Giant.
Definitely not. I did not speak to him. If you're interested in this question, I'm just describing. You have to look at the Facebook video because I didn't put this in the edit.
Okay.
But it was just a bit long, the interview. But I asked him about this. I said, surely they're not going to have to pay this back. And he said, no, it's actually happened in the past.
Really?
Yeah, he said what they do is, even though the importers pass those costs on to the consumers, they pay compo to the people who directly pay the checks, the tariff checks. So they make.
So importers can really make out
they can make a profit.
Bandits from this.
Yeah, and he didn't say it will happen. He said it has happened.
Yeah.
So it might not. But
wow.
But anyway, I still find this really weird.
Glad I got those hats imported.
Thank you. I hope you have to pay a tariff for this one, mate. Although you pay any tariff, it's worth it. And the final point I want to make about tariffs, I don't know if you've got more points to make about tariffs, Dave, but the final point I want to make is why this case is so important. Because he's going to go to the Supreme Court. It may be upheld, it may not. I think it's going to get upheld, but we'll see. We'll see. There's a reason I think this case is the most important case of the Trump administration.
Okay, yep.
And it's got nothing to do with tariffs. What it's got to do with is, in my view, much more important than tariffs.
Yep.
Which is my personal obsession, which is emergency laws.
Yes. Yep.
And this seems to me to be our only hope of the Supreme Court laying down some ground rules, which do not exist at the moment when it comes to emergency laws. And by the way, I was pissed off. Dave can vouch for this. I was pissed off about emergency laws since PEP began. It's got nothing to do with...
He was.
So I've always been my bond about these.
Yep.
Trump did not invent this problem. There are 137 different statutory powers that the president can unlock if they declare an emergency. All recent presidents have been happy to do this. And until now, there's been no restriction at all on what they can declare as an emergency. And the court usually shows complete deference.
It does.
Now, I find that unacceptable. What Trump has done, maybe to the long-term benefit of America, maybe not, is push the use of emergencies into shameless territories.
Yeah.
So they have no choice but to confront this.
Yes.
He's declared 10 emergencies so far in his 7 months. And they've been almost uniformly pathetic. Let me go through them. Illegal border crossings, Mexican cartels, failure to maximize mining and drilling on federal lands, fentanyl from China, fentanyl from Mexico, fentanyl from Canada. The International Criminal Court is an emergency. The trade deficit is an emergency. Brazil's prosecution of Bolsonaro is an emergency. Crime in Washington, D.C. That's 10 so far. They've already promised a national housing emergency, a crime in Chicago emergency, and a crime in Baltimore emergency coming. So that's 13 emergencies, which is that's what Trump did in his entire first term.
That's a hell of a lot of emergencies for a golden age.
Yes, it is. That's a great call. I hadn't thought of that. And we're lucky, to be honest. We're lucky he hasn't pushed it further because some of the emergency powers he hasn't exercised are extreme. He has the power to take over the TV airwaves at the moment because of an emergency. He has the power to take over the internet at the moment because of an emergency. He has the power to suspend habeas corpus because of an emergency. Because Bolsonaro is being prosecuted in Brazil, he can suspend habeas corpus. He could potentially go full dictator for real, not bullshit like scaremongering, like real dictator. Those powers exist.
Yes.
He's been relatively restrained to date. But the Supreme Court or Congress, it's not too late for them to draw a line right now before this gets out of hand. And to my mind, this case is exactly the case where that can happen because this is about emergencies and piss weak emergencies. And so hopefully the Supreme Court is going to use this to draw some kind of boundary because God knows Congress won't. Right? Any kind of boundary. And if they foolishly don't, and especially if they foolishly allow Trump to get away with this, I am very scared for what could be coming down the pike. And I don't mean Trump here. Could be Trump, but how bad his success is, you can't even imagine the shit that's coming after Trump.
Yes.
Right? So this is America's one chance to fix this. I think it's so important. And I really, really, really hope the Supreme Court takes advantage of this opportunity.
Just to add to this, so Trump has made it very clear that they want this resolved as soon as possible. So they want the court to take it up within the next 10 days and to hear arguments in November.
Okay.
So they want this done.
Bring it.
As quickly as quickly as possible. My guess would be that there are a lot of Republicans from J.D. Vance down who are praying that the Supreme Court is going to put an end to these tariffs. Because, I mean, they're not for the same reasons that you are, but because of the economic damage that tariffs are going to do. They are going to be praying that the Supreme Court saves Trump from himself, but then they still get to spend the next 3 years complaining about how everything that went wrong because activist judges thwarted Mr. Trump's agenda, and Mr. Trump needs more power as a result. So I would say, with the exception of Peter Navarro and a few hardcores in Congress, I'm guessing most of the people around Trump are really, really hoping that the Supreme Court ends these tariffs.
Normally, I'd say Howard Lutnick would be on Navarro's side, but given he's got all this money riding on the compo, maybe he's not. Yeah. But we got a correspondence from I think is Dan Bond. Dan Bond, I think. About the conflict of interest of Navarro. Spending all this money, or his son. Spending all this money betting on the tariff compo. Do you have a view about that conflict of interest?
Oh, look, I think it is a conflict of interest, but we are so far gone with conflict of interest. I mean, this is just my honest view at this point. Obviously, and I find it very hard to care because of the blatant corruption that is currently going on in the Oval Office. It's. I wish that I wasn't so jaded, but I am. Yeah,
no, you're probably right. It's probably a little bit like going, oh, look at that iguana in the middle of Jurassic Park.
But pretty obvious conflict of interest. Look, I also want to make the point that Trump's claims about how much world peace has been caused by his tariffs are somewhat overblown.
Yeah? You don't think of created world peace?
Look, I think of all of the conflicts where he cited tariffs as a key factor, the one where there'd be the strongest case would be Thailand and Cambodia, where he does actually seem to have used tariff negotiations pretty effectively there to help broker
to end a war,
a peace.
Are you saying to end a war? I'm not sure it's a war,
but it's hard to say what the counterfactual would have been without that. But when he talks though about this tremendous power of tariffs to bring economic pressure on other countries, I won't dispute that there's a lot of power there, which he has used effectively to achieve all kinds of policy aims. But the thing is, the US has far more effective economic weapons at its disposal. They are called sanctions.
Yeah.
Right? If he wants to bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, the most effective way to do it would be with some of the sanctions he actually suggested using against Russia. Sanctions, first of all, they are a lot more effective. Second, they're just a very clear weapon. You don't have any of this ambiguity about, well, maybe we're trying to get them to do something, but maybe we just want money, from the sale of their goods. So, yeah, I would say sanctions are a far more effective tool.
Fair enough.
Stats Nugget.
This is a beauty. It's been a while since I had a good stats nugget. This one's a good one. The share of American adults who say they consume alcohol, Dave, has fallen to 54%.
Right.
The lowest by 1 percentage point in Gallup's nearly 90-year history. Here is the graph for you to observe.
Yes.
You will notice, if you look at that graph, that it's dropping rather rapidly recently.
It is.
From 67% saying they consumed alcohol in 2022 to 54% in 2025.
That's a big drop.
Only 24%, Dave, say they have had a drink in the last 24 hours. Only 40% say they've had a drink in the last week. Also, those who are drinking less. Let's have a look at the next graph. It's dropped from 4.5 drinks a week a decade ago to 2.4 drinks a week today amongst those who are drinking. And just in the last year, it's dropped 1 drink a week on average. Just to be clear, that graph is showing the average number of drinks had in the last week amongst those who did drink.
Yes.
Okay, right. So.
Just one very minor point. A standard drink in the US is about 1.5 Australian standard drinks.
Worth noting.
If you're thinking in those terms. Yes.
Everything's bigger.
Yep.
This is self-reporting, which might be sus, but ethanol consumption has also dropped over the years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before people say, oh, yeah, weird kids of today, I know it's the hat making me crotchety talking about kids. I'm turning to Trump. Anyway, it's not. It's not about kids. It's about everyone. Everyone is drinking less. In the last 2 years, 18 to 34s have dropped from 59% drinking to 50% drinking. 35 to 54s, though, have dropped from 66 to 56%.
Yep.
And 55 pluses have dropped from 61% to 56%. Admittedly, kids are drinking older, though, than they used to.
Yep.
According to the Michigan Uni survey. There we are.
It's the Michigan Corner.
According to the Michigan Uni survey, 42% of 12th graders drank alcohol in 2024, compared to 75% in 1997. But only 13% of 8th graders drank alcohol in 2024, compared to 46% in 97, which means more 8th graders drank in 97 than 12th graders drink in 2024.
Wow.
So there we go. That's a real interesting takeaway. Also interesting, I never would have predicted this, Dave. Republicans are leading the charge. In the last 2 years, Democrats have gone from 64% drinking to 61% drinking. Independents have gone from 61% to 55%. Republicans have gone from 65% to 46%. Do you have any thoughts so far before I go on?
In terms of an overall drop in alcohol consumption,
Yes.
I would have thought that the widespread legality of marijuana has something to do with it.
Yeah.
A lot of people find that a much better way to relax and get a bit loose and conversational, than alcohol.
Well,
and there's a widespread belief that its health effects aren't as bad either.
It's strange that the last 2 years in particular, though. That is a bit strange.
Yeah.
But over time, you can see there is a trend. There is a broad trend.
Yeah.
So that is probably related, I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, I can see there's going down ever since 2010. That's because I left the country.
That is the other factor. Let me throw out, you did touch on this.
Yes.
With your marijuana thing. Health. Maybe it's because people are associating drinking increasingly with poor health. if we have a look at the perceived health effects graph, when asked whether having 1 to 2 drinks a day is good for your health, bad for your health, or makes no difference, there has been a huge spike in those saying it's bad for you in the last couple of years. That's the red line for those watching the graph. It's a decade ago, 26% said a drink or 2 a day is bad for your health. Now 53% say a drink or 2 a day is bad for you. So it's doubled. Just in the last 2 years, that's gone from 45% to 53%. But here's the interesting bit, Dave. There is no doubt alcohol is associated with a lot of social ills. The CDC estimates around 178,000 excess deaths each year from alcohol abuse. 12,000 were deaths in drunk driving accidents.
Yes.
1 out of every 3 car crash deaths involved alcohol.
Yep.
Here's an amazing stat. 40% of murders involved alcohol.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. But the decline in overall drinking hasn't affected the number of alcohol-related deaths at all. Why not? Because the reduction in drinking hasn't come from problem drinkers.
Yes.
It's come from moderate drinkers.
Yes.
Moderate drinkers are either drinking less or not at all. Whereas the problem drinkers, still the same number of problem drinkers drinking problem amounts.
Yes.
What might be going on here, Dave, and this is just speculation,
Yep.
is the reduction in moderate drinking could be related to a reduction in socializing.
It could be.
Because that is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Between 2003 and
Yeah.
2024, time spent attending or hosting social events decreased by 50% amongst Americans aged 15 and older. And those moderate drinkers, maybe they only drink when they go out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know plenty of people who only drink when they go out.
Yeah. So maybe, and this is just a theory, that this is actually a symptom of a negative trend. The negative trend of a lack of socialization in modern society.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
I think that is a very good observation. Yes.
I actually think this is a bit alarming for you, Chaz.
Me?
Yeah, I mean, if we take a look, that means peppers aren't drinking whenever you tell them to drink. After a thank you for attention to this matter tweet.
You're right. Given that pretty much the entirety of America are peppers, that is reflecting a lack of people going along with the drink calls.
But maybe it's because they know that you don't drink at all and they want to live the Chaz/Radis lifestyle.
Maybe this is a sign of respect for Radis. I interpret a lot of things as respect for Radis. Dave, straighten us up. Talk about Harvard.
Okay, so this week the Federal Appeals Court found that it was illegal for Donald Trump's administration to withhold $2.2 billion in research funding from Harvard. Now, this isn't the only way that the administration has talked about potentially punishing Harvard, but this was the big one. This was the one that led to the big lawsuits where, once again, both parties wanted a quick judgment. Yep. So both parties were asking for a judgment without trial. This is what they got. And not surprisingly, the Trump administration has said that it is going to appeal this. Okay, so on the one hand, this is obviously a pretty significant victory for Harvard, potentially a significant victory for the university sector overall, although I'm honestly not so sure because I don't know how widely the principles that decided this case are going to be applied outside of Harvard. Harvard's in a very unique position. Harvard, as I said, among other things, always emphasized its special status as a private university.
Yep.
I mean, the good thing about this judgment is that it acknowledged basically that anti-Semitism was being used as a very cynical cudgel to pursue other political aims.
Yeah, that the judgment was very clear about that.
Yeah, so maybe that will help other universities who are being targeted in the same way. But even though, so this is the victory that Harvard was looking for, it has been reported that Harvard has already actually made a lot of changes that the Trump administration wanted. Harvard has dismantled its Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion and Belonging and changed the name of it to the Office of Student Affairs.
Something which the court cited
Yes.
as an example of a breach of the First Amendment.
Yes.
Yes.
It has dismantled specific offices and networks that were there to support black students, queer students, and women. It's merging them all now into a single office. Nobody knows what that is going to look like. Even though Harvard has been adamant about retaining complete control over hiring and firing decisions, it still fired people that the federal government didn't like, including one of its heads of a Middle Eastern studies program, a Turkish academic. Harvard has talked about establishing a centre for conservative thought. Now, I don't have a big problem with that. I think that'd be a great idea, but this is clearly probably not something they would be doing if they hadn't been facing pressure.
Yeah, if they're doing it because the government's making them do
Yeah.
it, that's another breach of the First Amendment.
That is absolutely another breach. I want to see them do it though, because in 6 months conservatives would be so pissed off about this institution. It would not be the conservatives that they want.
Yeah.
It would be actual conservatives.
Yeah.
It would be conservatives who read books and things and quote Edmund Burke rather than Donald Trump.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to see this happen because they would absolutely hate it. I think that bit's a good idea. But once again, I think that this is being done under duress. So even though this looks like a legal victory to Harvard, in meaningful ways it is, there has been a bit of capitulation going on.
Yep.
And the Harvard chapter of the Association of American University Professors is pushing its own lawsuit because it does not like what the university has been doing.
What's their lawsuit?
Their lawsuits, it's another one all about First Amendment breaches. Yes.
Okay.
I'm honestly not sure what the status of that lawsuit is.
Okay.
At the moment. So even though Harvard presents itself as heroically fighting against the Trump administration, at the same time, their president, Alan Garber, has been sort of making these not exactly Trumpy noises, but trying to do things that will please the Trump administration, seemingly with an eye on a future settlement, because this probably is still ultimately going into a settlement. What this ruling does, though, if it gets held up, is to potentially just give Harvard a lot more leverage in that settlement.
Yeah, they need a settlement because the government can still punish them in a million different ways.
In a million different ways.
Yeah.
Yes, such as revoking its ability to have international students.
Primarily, yeah.
Yes, is the big one. Another thing that they were talking about is a requirement that any president of Harvard have at least 15 years of relevant experience, which is something that would have ruled out Claudine Gay because she was a professor before that. But it's something that would probably also rule out Alan Garber.
Yeah.
It would depend on how you actually define experience. Okay, so certainly this is it's good on the First Amendment grounds that the court is holding up. And it's good that they recognise what a cynical weapon anti-Semitism has been turned into by this administration. But it is certainly not the end of the story, and it is far from an outright unambiguous victory for Harvard.
Can I just quickly go through the legals of this?
Yes.
Because you talked about the politics of it. I just want to talk about the legals a bit. When we're talking about this First Amendment elements of it, essentially the court held that the First Amendment includes the right to, quote, manage an academic community and evaluate teaching and scholarship free from government interference, as well as Harvard's prerogative to determine for itself on academic grounds who may teach and what is taught in the college classroom. That's all under the First Amendment. Anything that interferes with that is a breach of the First Amendment, according to this judge. She said the government's April 11 letter, their original demands, the crazy letter, which was leaked, was supposedly a mistake afterwards, was directed at those core freedoms, not at merely stopping anti-Semitism. She said the letter clearly stated the federal government only maintains financial relationship with Harvard if Harvard agreed to, quote, audit the student body, faculty, and leadership for viewpoint diversity, report that audit to the government, and hire a critical mass of new faculty and admit a critical mass of students who will provide viewpoint diversity. It further required Harvard to abolish all criteria, preferences, and practices, whether mandatory or optional, throughout its admissions and hiring practices that function as ideological litmus tests, to audit programs and departments that reflect ideological capture, to immediately shutter all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, committees, positions, and initiatives, including DEI-based speech control policies, and to demonstrate that it had done so to the satisfaction of federal government. And she said every one of those things I just read out was a violation of the First Amendment.
Including the things that Harvard's already done.
Exactly, yeah. Now, the government, their position in response was that the agency's terminations are explained by a non-retaliatory purpose, which is opposing anti-Semitism. And they said the government would have terminated the grants irrespective of Harvard's viewpoints. The judge said that argument does not carry the day. She said out of the 10 terms, only one of them was related to anti-Semitism, 6 related to ideological and pedagogical concerns. Also, she noted that Harvard's reply on April 14 to that letter only rejected the conditions it viewed as infringing on its First Amendment rights and specifically agreed to discuss measures aimed at combating anti-Semitism.
That includes paying for Hillel's security.
Yes.
Which is a Jewish student house.
Yep.
Yeah, things like that.
And she said, yet the government ignored that offer and froze the funding anyway. She said, in fact, quote, all that defendants learnt between, that's the government, all the government learnt between March 31st and April 14th was that Harvard would not capitulate to government demands that it audit, censor, or dictate viewpoints of staff and students. The fact that the defendants' swift and sudden decision to terminate funding, ostensibly motivated by anti-Semitism, was made before they learnt anything about anti-Semitism on campus or what was being done in response to anti-Semitism on campus, leads the court to conclude the sudden focus on anti-Semitism was at best arbitrary and at worst pretextual. The other thing the court noted was that Trump's tweets focused much more on punishing Harvard's ideology than anti-Semitism. I'm so glad that they just went through his tweets one by one and said, look, that's his intention. That's his intention. They should do that every time. I love that they did that.
And recently, he's just been completely fixated on money.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Columbia paid $400 million. Harvard's got to pay more.
Yes.
Harvard's got to pay $1 billion.
Yes.
Yeah. The fixation on the shakedown. Yeah.
And so her conclusion was, a review of the administrative record makes it difficult to conclude anything other than the defendants used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities. Defendants and the president are right to combat anti-Semitism and to use all lawful means to do so. Harvard was wrong to tolerate hateful behaviour for as long as it did. The record here, however, does not reflect that fighting anti-Semitism was defendants' true aim in acting against Harvard, and even if it were, combating anti-Semitism cannot be accomplished on the back of the First Amendment. We must fight against anti-Semitism, but we equally need to protect our rights, including our right to free speech, and neither goal should nor needs to be sacrificed on the altar of the other. So that's basically what that's the legals. And the one point I'd make, which I think a lot of people haven't considered, is how, if the Supreme Court wants to stitch this up, how they're going to do it. And it's not involving anything we just talked about.
Yep.
It's a completely different way. If they want to stitch this up, there is a way. In the last few cases of the Supreme Court recently, they've been discussing a lot the idea of whether the appeals courts and the district courts have the jurisdiction to challenge individual grants,
right,
and refusals of grants,
yep,
or whether they should happen in the Court of Federal Claims.
Right.
This is a very complicated technical issue.
Yep.
If they want to make this disappear, they can strike down this ruling on the basis it should have gone to the Court of Federal Claims and not to the District and Appeals Court.
Right.
So I don't know if they're going to do that, but if they want to help Trump win, without compromising the First Amendment, that's how you do it.
They're listening to PEP.
So we'll see if that's what they do. Look, we'll find out what they want to do.
To remake a point that I made a few weeks ago, I think that one of the things that this assault on universities has really made very clear is that, like it or not, the federal government has a lot of levers to mess with universities, including with private universities.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that the federal government is such an important source of grants and contracts, but also because of the administrative bureaucracy that's been created around international students with the war on terror, which effectively makes universities into an arm of CBP or ICE. Because of also because of Title VI, Title VIII and Title IX legislation, there is no escaping the fact that if a federal government wants to do something like this, it can. And ultimately, like so many things, this is a political problem that isn't necessarily going to have a legal resolution. The way that universities have dealt with this in the past is generally capitulation. So back in the 1950s, where there were a lot of faculty being targeted for supposedly communist beliefs, Columbia's president had this famous saying, "There will be no witch hunt at Columbia because there will be no witches." And this seems to be the approach that a lot of American universities are taking now. There will be no witches, right? We will capitulate. And it's a capitulation sort of aimed basically at preserving some kind of version of liberalism that is going to be acceptable to a conservative government. The real hardcore cultural conservatives are never going to get what they want out of universities. Okay, they're never going to get the J.D. Vance dream of we can take all of these universities and use them as weapons of our own. They're just never going to get that. They're never going to be able to replace all of the faculty and all of the students with people that they like. They're always going to end up with these kinds of compromises, which is they claim a few academic scalps, they do a bit of damage or do a lot of long-term damage to the reputation of universities, but they still will end up with a situation that they find completely unsatisfactory. And it's hard to express exactly why this is the case, but in some, there are a lot of different centers of power in societies. Universities are one of them. Churches are one of them. Businesses are one of them. The government is one of them. The military is one of them. There are plenty of centers of power that conservatives control that the left is never going to control. Universities, I would not say that the left controls universities by any means in the US, but liberals control universities in the US, as they have done, I would say, for most of the 20th century. And I think that just the nature of the kinds of people that universities attract, in the same way the nature of people that businesses attract, the nature of people that churches attract, means it's going to be very difficult ever to have the kinds of conservative revolution that someone like J.D. Vance wants or that William F. Buckley wanted, for the simple reason most conservatives are not interested in it. Most conservatives are not interested in taking control of universities.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I don't think that. I mean, I agree with you that the conservative revolution is not going to be happening at universities. But I think that there is another reason, quite apart from the current administration pressure, the universities are quite happy to try to be more friendly towards conservatives, or rather less hostile to conservatives, I think is the better way of putting it. They are facing very different pressures and probably much greater pressures than anything Trump can can place. And that is they're facing demographic pressures of the fact they already need a huge number of international students to pay the bills. And they are about to have a lot less students coming through because there's a lot less children coming through. Like if you look at the projections on demographics, only a year away is a big drop in 18-year-olds
Yes.
coming.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep on reducing
Yep.
from there on for decades. And if you look ahead to 15 years from now,
Yeah.
they have a tiny fraction of number 18-year-olds they're playing with.
And remember, I mean, the modern American university system as we know it was based on a massive expansion of population. It was the baby boom. It was the GI Bill.
Yeah.
It was, that GI Bill was a huge expansion of the number of people who went to university, and it helped to create the American middle class whose children then went to university as well. Yeah, population doesn't expand forever.
Yeah, so they simply cannot afford to alienate such a large proportion of society. The conservative revolution doesn't need to happen. But what does need to happen for the universities to remain viable, I think, commercially, is they need to have a larger percentage of moderate conservatives going to university. And so they need to be more friendly towards them for that reason, just from a commercial point of view.
Yeah.
Leaving aside any pressure. And I bet you that is something they are thinking about, because they must have been looking at those graphs for years, thinking, oh, God, it's coming.
Yeah, but I don't think that they were ever actually disincentivizing moderate conservatives to go to universities anyway. I think that having been at an American university, yes, if you're in the English faculty somewhere, that might seem like a hostile place to conservatives. The vast majority of places, of faculties in American universities are either fairly kind of apolitical or they're places like business schools, which are very, very welcoming to conservative beliefs.
Sure.
What gets all the attention is the humanities and some parts of the social sciences.
Fair enough.
So I met enough conservatives on what was supposedly one of the most left-wing university campuses in America to know that the picture of conservative alienation from universities has been quite overblown.
I believe you.
Yes.
Okay, now let's move to yes, Dave.
Actually, on this point, though,
yes,
can I just mention the Chinese international students?
Please, go for it.
Because I think this flows on quite nicely.
Go for it.
Okay. Donald Trump shocked his own supporters last week by having an interview with the Daily Caller where he said that the numbers of Chinese students coming to the US would remain at 600,000 for the next 2 years.
Well, let's see the first time he mentioned it.
I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important. But we're going to get along with China.
And then the next day, he doubled down.
I think it's very insulting to say students can't come here, because they'll go out and they'll start building schools and they'll be able to survive it. But I like that their students come here. I like that other countries' students come here. And you know what would happen if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly. And it wouldn't be the top colleges. It would be colleges that struggle on the bottom. And you take out 300,000 or 600,000 students out of the system. I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here.
Dave.
I cannot believe how correct Trump is about this.
Yeah.
A lot of smaller, poorer universities are absolutely reliant on international students, including students from China.
Yes.
And
he's spot on.
Yes, he is absolutely correct about this. Now, okay, why is this announcement even being made at all? We're keeping the same number of Chinese students. It's because back in May, Marco Rubio, in one of his trying to look tough moments, announced that they would be revoking Chinese student visas, especially the visas of anybody connected to the CCP, right?
Yes.
So this is at the height of the tariff standoff between the US and China.
He said they will aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students.
Yes.
Yes.
Look, Marco Rubio's attempts to look tough are always so adorable. You know, he's there in his Mickey Mouse shorts saying, that's it, I'm not going to take this anymore.
To be fair, In the Enhancing National Security by Addressing Risks at Harvard University executive order in June, Trump also said,
Yes.
our adversaries, including the People's Republic of China, try to take advantage of American higher education by exploiting the student visa program for improper purposes and by using visiting students to collect information at elite universities in the United States, implying that Chinese students are all spies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's happened? Well, you might remember that fairly shortly after that, China said to the US, you know all those magnets that your car industry absolutely needs? You're not getting them.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Yes. Now, I wasn't quite expecting Trump to make the case so convincingly for why the US needs American students, but clearly he has been brought around by economic pressure, and his base hates it.
Yes.
Laura Loomer, the only person he actually seems to listen to about a lot of things, said nobody wants 600,000 CCP spies in the United States.
I've got another one here. If we are only mass deporting 1,000 illegals each day, but allowing 600,000 Chinese spies to come to our country, how can we call them mass deportations? Do the math. We will never get rid of the millions who came in under Biden. It's basic math.
How do you think she feels to know that Trump listens to Xi Jinping instead of her on the issue of Chinese students? Because he listens to her on a lot of other stuff.
Oh, he sure does.
On a lot of personnel decisions. He listens to her a lot more than he listens to J.D. Vance.
He sure does. Yeah, this is the only issue that her and Marjorie Taylor Greene agree on as well, because Marjorie Taylor Greene came from the other pincer as well.
Yeah.
We should not let in 600,000 Chinese students to attend American colleges and universities that may be loyal to the CCP. If refusing to allow these Chinese students to attend our schools causes 15% to fail, then these schools should fail anyways because they are being propped up by the CCP. Why are we allowing 600,000 students from China to replace our American students' opportunities?
But hang on. The thing is that this is exactly the sort of thing that Trump dreams about, in that this is literally another country's people paying the United States, paying in many cases government institutions. Yes. This is actually a transfer of money from China to the United States.
Yes.
So those 600,000 students, okay, so out-of-state fees in the US for universities are generally between $25,000 and $50,000 a year, right? So at the low end, that 600,000 represents $15 billion. At the high end, it represents $30 billion. That is just tuition. That's before we take into account accommodation and general costs of living. Okay? So that is actually a direct monetary transfer from the People's Republic of China to the United States, splashed across all kinds of institutions, including regional institutions, businesses. Like, this is the sort of thing that Trump actually dreams about. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, and I don't expect anyone from MAGA to grasp this point, but it's very important, a lot of America's post-war strength came from the number of people it drew into its education system from other countries. Okay. Not only did a lot of its top scientific and social scientific faculty come from other countries, often coming to the United States and staying where they can continue to contribute to the United States for the rest of their lives. And we know there were some very important scientific programs that were driven by foreign researchers. Even those who went back after getting an American education tended to go back as people who would help build American alliances with other countries. Right? You've only got to look at things like Taiwan's cabinet having more PhDs than any American, more American PhDs than any American cabinet ever would. You look at any government of any country, you will find American educated people there. I include the Australian government in that. I know a couple of people in the current Australian cabinet who have got at least one degree from an American university, right? This was part of the strength of the United States. It was part of both its soft power and its hard power, was the fact that it could draw in so much of the world's talent as well as some random podcasters, into its university system. This was a huge aspect of its national strength that it would be very wise to just undo. In spite of everything, people are still beating down the doors to get into American universities. There's a much higher demand for American universities than there is, say, for American cars in Europe or Japan.
Yes.
Right? This is one of the major advantages that the US has in terms of the export of services. So this is an utterly, shockingly sensible decision by the Trump administration that I was so glad that Trump actually articulated the reasons for it, even if the reason why he came to this decision was basically about getting the critical magnets that the car industry needs.
Sadly, he came to that decision too late because all of the messing around earlier this year was during the enrollment
Yeah,
period.
it was.
And so now the visa applications for international students are projected to be down by 30 to 40% this fall, down from about 1 million international students a year ago. So there you go.
Yep.
I'm glad we covered that. That is good to slip that in there. Let's go to the crackdown. The last.
I love the Law and Order graphic.
Oh, very nice. That's a good one, Lockie. Okay. So some polls suggest the polls are kind of all over the place. We did talk about this last week.
Yep.
Some have suggested the crackdown's super popular. Some not so popular.
No.
AP NROC was definitely Trump's best poll last week. 53% approved of his handling of crime. In the same very positive poll, 53% now disapprove of his handling of immigration, which is interesting. That's a positive poll.
Yeah.
Which could explain why Trump's trying to elevate this issue.
Right.
Because immigration's starting to stink for him already.
Yes.
65% said that crime in the US generally is a big problem. 81% say it's a major problem in the big cities. 55% said it's acceptable for the US military and National Guard to assist local police in large cities. 55%. But even in this positive poll, only 32% said they would support the federal government taking over police departments in American cities.
Right.
And then there's the negative ones, like Quinnipiac, you mentioned last time. They found only 42% approved of Trump's handling of crime.
Yep.
Reuters Ipsos found only 38% supported sending the National Guard into Washington, D.C. So there's a few negative polls there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quinnipiac, it just has to be said, is generally one of the more negative polls for Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. One sign that the crime agenda is popular, though, is that Governor Gavin Newsom is trying to
do his own version of it?
Yes. He announced the deployment of a new California Highway Patrol Suppression Team.
Let's call this one of his Kimberly Guilfoyle moments.
That's going to work with local law enforcement throughout California to fight crime. Newsom said, when the state and local communities work together strategically, public safety improves. While the Trump administration undermines cities, California is partnering with them and delivering real results. With these new deployments, we're doubling down on these partnerships to build on progress and keep driving crime down. Okay, so look, I mean, I'm sure he's right that his initiative is being more constructive than Trump is. But he's still trying to co-opt the issue, obviously. So draw your own conclusions on that.
Yes.
Wrapping up DC, Muriel Bowser.
Jesus.
What?
Yeah. No, like, it, as much as I talk about the capitulation of universities, it's good to see there's someone who's capitulating 100 times harder.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, she has, well, first of all, she's released DC data. Finally, she's released official data that shows that crime has indeed reduced during the crackdown, which you'd expect when there's almost twice as much law enforcement on the streets, obviously. Crime's down 15% over the last 20 days compared to 2024. Violent crime down 45%. Carjacking down 87%. Homicide down 38%. Sexual assault down 44%. Robbery down 62%. She gave what I thought was a fair assessment of what she felt was demonstrated over the last 20 days in terms of strengths and weaknesses, which we can look at there.
This is what we think in just a couple of weeks of experience has worked. Having more federal law enforcement officers on the street. We think having more stops that got to illegal guns has helped. We think that there's more accountability in the system, or at least perceived accountability in the system, that is driving down illegal behavior. We know that we have had fewer gun crimes, fewer homicides, and we have experienced an extreme reduction in carjackings. What we know is not working is a break in trust between police and community, especially with new federal partners in our community. We know having masked ICE agents in the community has not worked, and National Guards from other states has not been an efficient use of those resources. What's still needed is, in the city, we're going to continue to need more police. We continue to need more prosecutors, more judges, more effective prevention programs, and we need to ensure local control.
Of course, people just took out the bit they wanted to focus on. And, as is always the case. She's also, and this is what Dave's referring to, she is also ordered, they've reached the 1 month limit basically for federal involvement, so it's time for them to piss off. But she has just issued an executive order. This is, I assume, what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Stating that DC will ensure coordination with federal law enforcement to the maximum extent allowable by law within this district. And she's ordered that DC will continue to communicate its priorities to federal counterparts and other ways the federal government can assist the district. So she wants to continue to work with the federal government. Although she does request that federal partners make efforts to, quote, maintain community confidence in law enforcement, including by not wearing masks to conceal their identities. Whether they listen to her, we'll see. Do you have thoughts about this, Dave?
I've already said them.
Yep, I thought so. Okay. We told you that Jean Pirro demanded the harshest possible charges and sentencing for all offences except for gun crimes.
Yes.
Well, they're now filing about 100 cases a day in DC Superior Court, which is roughly double what the local court sees in normal times. She's filing so many low-level cases that she needs to use military lawyers to help her out. But here's the interesting thing. We referred to grand juries and how they've begun rejecting the charges. There's a bit more to this. One of the issues she's facing is that DC has only 700,000 residents. And it's really small.
Yes.
So pretty much everyone on those grand juries has personal experience with the bullshit that's going on.
Yes.
And they may not be enjoying it, Dave.
No.
Only 7% of those people, Dave, voted for Trump in 2024. And they're all sitting on the grand jury.
Yes.
So almost everyone on the grand jury is probably unsympathetic to what Pirro is trying to do. And if all these pissy cases go to trial,
Yes.
the same people are going to be sitting on the real jury as well.
Yes.
So I'm not sure they've really thought this through. Some of the judges aren't loving it either. This week, Judge Faruqi described one charge as perhaps one of the weakest requests for detention I have seen, and something that prior to 2 weeks ago would have been unthinkable in this courthouse. So going to be of this. But remarkably, Dave, this is something that hasn't got much attention. Remarkably, in the middle of all this very strict enforcement, even amongst the pissiest crimes,
Yes.
sandwich throwing, that kind of stuff, one person had their very long-term case dropped. That person was Republican Congressman Corey Mills.
Ah.
Do you remember his situation, Dave?
I do remember his situation.
Yeah. Back in February, police were called in after he left a domestic disturbance site with the woman he was having an affair with. She said he'd grabbed her, shoved her, pushed her out the door. She had fresh bruises on her arms. She played police a recorded phone call in which Mills told her to lie about where her bruises came from. Then Mills showed up again and she recanted all of a sudden all her testimony, and she had a series of nonsensical explanations for the bruises, etc. The police didn't buy it, surprisingly, and they filed an arrest warrant for Mills, which Ed Martin, Eagle Ed Martin Jr., who was US Attorney at the time, refused to sign. So the case was just in purgatory. It was sent back to the Metro Police for further investigation. Nothing happened. Right until the DOJ took over the Metro Police Department. And then they chose to close the investigation. How about that? Quote from Mills. I'd like to thank the Metro Police Department for their diligent investigation into false and misleading accusations made against me by the media, ensuring that both truth and justice prevailed. The media's claims and political spins have been debunked, and the case is closed. It's blatantly obvious that some have attempted to over-politicise this to impact the 2026 election, but these efforts have failed. Oh, and by the way, there's still that lawsuit that Mills is facing, charging him with using revenge porn against his ex-partner as well. That's just hanging around because they can't drop that. That's a lawsuit. Anyway, Corey Mills.
Corey.
So now we move to Chicago, Dave.
Yes.
That's, you got Navy Captain Stephen Yargos, commanding officer of Naval Station Great Lakes, wrote an email to his leadership team alerting them that DHS and ICE agents would be housed there throughout September. He said these operations are similar to what occurred in LA earlier this summer. Same DHS team. This morning I received a call that there's the potential to also support National Guard units. Not many details on this right now, mainly a lot of concerns and questions. An anonymous US official says that DHS has discussed using the base for immigration enforcement, and they plan to surge ICE and CBP agents to Chicago starting this week to scale up, next week, to scale up operations to arrest illegal immigrants. Another anonymous source said about 30 to 40 ICE agents had been practicing riot control tactics at the military installation for months, using flashbang grenades and marching in phalanxes with shields. Jamie Pritzker also said that the head of the Illinois State Police was warned by Greg Bovino, the CBP official, who led the LA raids, that immigration raids were coming to Chicago soon. Pritzker thought the raids would be timed for Mexican Independence Day, which the Latino community will be celebrating. We'll see. He said, if someone flings a sandwich at an ICE agent, Trump will try and go on TV and declare an emergency. None of this is about fighting crime or making Chicago safer. None of it. For Trump, it's about testing his power and producing a political drama to cover up for his corruption. Okay. The Texas National Guard was rumoured to be involved in this. Greg Abbott's office denies it. It's got nothing to do with it. Okay.
Yeah.
I should say, if they just do immigration raids, that's legal. They can do that. The feds can do immigration raids wherever they want. No emergency required, no National Guard issues.
No.
And, to the extent that there may be some action in Chicago, Trump wasn't being exactly coy.
So that's what he said.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in.
Okay. But then, the day after, he said this.
We have a great thing going. I could do that with Chicago. We could do that with New York. We could do it with Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago or do we go to a place like New Orleans where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough, quite bad. So we're going to be going to maybe Louisiana. And you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem. We'll straighten that out in about 2 weeks. It'll take us 2 weeks. Easier than D.C. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us.
So what's going on, Dave? Are they going to Chicago? Are they going to New Orleans? What the hell is happening?
He's going after El Hardy.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. It's all about... He's a pepper, He's a pepper.
All about El's one-woman crime wave in New Orleans.
That might be, yes. I don't even understand what he's suggesting here.
In all seriousness, if they do go to New Orleans, I can't wait for El's reporting.
Oh, yeah.
On that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But I hope that they don't go to New Orleans. I hope they don't go to Chicago. But as you said, what this is really all about is immigration enforcement.
It's always about immigration.
And they've probably got a lot more opportunities given that they're trying to deport certain numbers of people every week and every year. Chicago is going to be a much happier hunting ground for them than New Orleans is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would in some ways make sense to go to New Orleans because, as I said, that would actually be the rare occasion where the governor requests the National Guard.
And they've got crime there, unlike Chicago. I mean, Chicago's got crime, but not like New Orleans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially looking at the homicide rate. But
New Orleans homicide rate is 34. Chicago's 17.5. It's like half of New Orleans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
In fact, Louisiana has 3 cities in the top 30 murder rates in America.
yeah.
Which is New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson's city.
Now, I'm not sure what kind of resistance they would actually meet in Chicago. Okay, so what happened in Los Angeles is there's such a long history and tradition of Chicano organizations in Los Angeles mobilizing to support immigrants in this way. I mean, Chicago, the big protest movements have been African-American protest movements, which is not to say there wouldn't be organisation there to protect. It would be mainly Mexican immigrants in Chicago, but I don't know if it would be organised on the scale that it was in Los Angeles. Because if it's ICE and the national, if it's ICE and the CBP doing immigration raids, then that presumably isn't going to be happening in African American neighborhoods. But yeah, I don't know though, because there are probably a lot of migrant neighborhoods that are very close to African American neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way I see it, there are 2 major issues with Chicago. Mm-hmm. The first of which is Chicago absolutely does not need Trump's assistance.
Yes.
Despite him insisting that they do.
Yes.
So there's a truth social here. There's a truth here. At least 54 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. 8 people were killed. The last 2 weekends were similar. Chicago is the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far. Pritzker needs help badly. He just doesn't know it yet. I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in DC. Chicago will be safe again and soon. Make America great again. Now, the first thing you see there is a common theme. Trump citing raw numbers of shootings and murders and crimes rather than rates of murders and crimes, because since Chicago is a very big city, and New York and LA are particularly low crime cities, Chicago is always going to have the most raw numbers of crimes in America. It's got nearly 3 million people, and it's got dozens of everything. Indeed, in 2024, Chicago, Dave, had 572 murders, the most from any city in America for the 13th consecutive year.
Yes.
But its rates are a lot lower than many other cities. I already told you, half of New Orleans. Birmingham, Alabama, St. Louis, Missouri, Memphis, Tennessee, all recorded more than 40 murders per 100,000 people. In 2024, Chicago is 17 murders per 100,000 people. So that's less than half the rate of them. As far as violent crime goes, just take a stab in the dark where Chicago ranks in America for cities with more than 250,000 people, where it ranks for violent crime.
30.
55th.
Wow, okay.
55th, Dave. It's not the world's most dangerous city.
No.
The worst and most dangerous city in the world by far, actually, which was stupid even by Trump standards. By the way, that rate of 540 violent crime incidents per 100,000 people, I know we shouldn't compare cities with these rates because of the different denominator. I get that. Like I want to say that every time, but just we have no other means of making our points here. So just be aware this is approximate, but it's about 1/5 of the rate in Memphis.
Yeah.
And incidentally, if Texas did deploy their National Guard, Texas has 5 cities with higher violent crime rates than Chicago, which is Houston, Corpus Christi, Lubbock, Dallas, and San Antonio.
Lubbock?
Yeah. And that is all. Everything I just told you is 2024. In 2025, it's better.
Yes.
Right. 2025, Chicago's crime rates plummeted again. We've seen the fewest shootings so far this year than any year since the mid-1960s. Now, to be fair, that is the case across America.
Yes.
Not just Chicago. But still, Chicago's doing well. And I could say identical things about Baltimore too, because Trump wants to go to Baltimore. They are doing even better than Chicago at the moment. Also, lowest crime rate since the 1960s in Baltimore. As an aside, there are many studies showing that militarizing the police, even giving them just surplus military equipment, doesn't make cities safer or police more effective. It actually reduces the police's reputation and leads to more civilian lives lost. But just let's leave that aside. Here is a beauty, which you haven't seen anywhere else, Dave. This is a PEP exclusive for you,
Okay.
because the media ignored this one. One more consideration about the effectiveness of the National Guard in helping out a place like LA or Chicago was raised by Gavin Newsom the other day. And I think he thought he was onto a winner here and no one picked up on it, except for PEP. So here you go.
Just I want to also compliment the commissioner. It was the CHP working with LAPD that were protecting the National Guard and the military in LA. I want to thank them for that. The LAPD, in partnership with the CHP, had to protect the federalized guard and the United States military after Donald Trump federalized them. And I just want to compliment you more publicly for an outstanding job in that respect. Forgive me.
So obviously he backed over it and emphasised it, so everyone took note. Well, except no one reported it. But at that point, it's not been made that the LAPD didn't just single-handedly have to take care of the protests, but they had to single-handedly take care of the National Guard as well. They literally had to protect the people that Trump is suggesting were responsible for this, for breaking down crime in LA. So
yes,
I think that's worth noting. Anyway, so that's the first issue they've got.
Yeah.
That Chicago doesn't need.
They definitely protected the National Guard from that reporter who they shot in the arse.
That's right. But the second problem he's got is everything has changed in the last week, Dave, because of this court case.
Yep.
In a big way. Do you know the court case I'm talking about?
I do know the court case you're talking about.
Okay, so this is in LA. This is Judge Breyer. Now I should say this has no precedential value for Chicago because this is just a district court in California.
Yep.
But the local courts in Chicago would have been taking notice, and the same arguments could be used again.
Yep.
There's a ruling that Trump overstepped the line in how he used the National Guard in LA. He used them in a way that violated the posse comitatus law. Now, we have seen Judge Breyer before. You might recall earlier this year he found the federalization of the California National Guard had been illegal.
Yep.
And he was he said that Trump had to return control of the 4,000 California National Guard that he federalized back to Gavin Newsom. He was overruled by the Ninth Circuit.
Yep.
He's back. There's a different ruling. This is how Trump used the National Guard once they were federalized. When you federalize National Guard troops, they're not allowed to perform law enforcement duties under the Posse Comitatus Act. And to be fair, the National Guard were mostly just standing around protecting federal buildings.
They were.
But according to Breyer, they still did enough to be breaking the law.
There were a couple of arrests, I remember.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you 3 examples.
Okay.
And now, while they don't need to get rid of the 300 National Guard that are still there, the Trump administration has been strictly blocked from using those troops for law enforcement activities, including arrests, searches, seizures, traffic control, crowd control, interrogation, or acting as informants. Okay, so how did Trump use the National Guard? Breyer said that Trump systematically used military vehicles, armed soldiers whose identity was often obscured by protective armour to set up traffic blockades and engage in crowd control where there was no anticipated threat to the safety of federal agents. He also said they sent the National Guard out to accompany immigration and drug enforcement agents on operations across the region, like the marijuana farm. Remember that?
I remember that.
The military were there.
Yeah.
And they weren't meant to be there. The Trump administration had argued that concern about the ability of federal employees to do their jobs without interruption was a constitutional exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Breyer said if that was true, then the presidents could use a National Guard whenever federal law is impeded, and including enforcing tax laws, or the Clean Water Act, or to seize control over elections to prevent supposed fraud. And for those who are worried about what Trump might do in an election, your ears might have pricked up at that last one.
Yes.
Breyer, quote, "There is no question that federal personnel should be able to perform their jobs without fearing for their safety, but to use this as a hook to send military troops alongside federal agents wherever they go proves too much and would frustrate the very purpose of the Posse Comitatus Act." And here's the key bit. Hegseth was instrumental in breaking the law. In fact, you could blame him entirely. Breyer said everyone in the US Northern Command knew the Posse Comitatus Act applied and no one expressed a contrary view. And its leaders instructed members of the Guard task force about what law enforcement duties they could not perform. But then Pete Hegseth came over the top and changed their orders, Dave. I'm going to show you a slide that Breyer cited. That was part of their training materials. You can see it says the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits active, direct, pursuit, arrest, apprehension, search, seizure, security patrols, traffic control, crowd control, riot control, evidence collection, interrogation, and informant. That's all correct, Dave. But you see 4 of them are in red.
Yep.
Security patrols, traffic control, crowd control, riot control are in red.
Yes.
Apparently, Hegseth instructed that those 4 activities were subject to the constitutional exception we just mentioned. Hegseth just made it up and said they could do it.
And called it a constitutional exception.
That's what he said. And then the administration used that exception to justify sending the Guard out to support missions that were law enforcement actions in places with no true risk of riots. 100 miles away from Los Angeles, like raiding the marijuana farm. Remember the sweep of MacArthur Park?
Yep.
What they called Operation Excalibur, where they just had the military move through the middle of the park? Remember, it was for a show of presence. That was Pete Hegseth. That was he is the one who personally approved that. Major General Sherman from the National Guard, their commander, objected to that stroll through the park, and Chief Bavino of the Department of Homeland Security criticised him for his opposition, questioning his loyalty to America.
Whoa.
That's a quote from Breyer. Breyer noted that there were no threats to federal property in the middle of the park when the military went through. Breyer also noted, this is a juicy little quote, Excalibur is, of course, a reference to the legendary sword of King Arthur, which symbolises his divine sovereignty as king. All approved personally by Pete Hegseth. Remember the concern about Pete Hegseth being defense secretary was that if he was asked to turn the military onto protesters or onto the American people like Esper was, he'd provide no resistance? There you go, Dave. Hegseth was a wonderful enabler. Who would have thought that the guy best known for excusing war crimes would make a rotten defense secretary? Anyway, so now this ruling could be easily overturned.
Yep.
It was overturned. His first ruling was overturned by the Ninth Circuit. But until it is, that is weeks away, maybe months away. Maybe we'll see what the Supreme Court says.
Yep.
Its timing is perfect to screw over Trump in Chicago.
Yes.
Because this is all going to be very relevant to anything he tries in Chicago. So that might be, this ruling was just before he started to New Orleans.
Yes.
So this might be, he might just put a little pause on Chicago, or maybe just make it immigration related.
Yes, yeah. That would be my suspicion.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not going to pause the immigration operation
until this is overruled.
Yep.
So anyway, so this ruling is a good ruling, and it might have just fucked Trump over. Got any thoughts about any of this?
No.
Okay, well, why don't we talk about the Venezuelan boat, Dave?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
talking about law enforcement operations gone wild.
Law enforcement operations gone wild. Yeah. So the US military blew up a boat.
They sure did.
Yes. It was an airstrike
Yep.
on a boat.
Like, it shows the overlay while Dave talks about
Close to Venezuelan territorial waters. 11 people died.
Yep.
And they said that it was a boat that was being used to smuggle drugs.
Well, there's a boat.
Yep.
It's looking a little bit more like Magnum than a drug smuggler.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there it is, the airstrike. That's 11 people dead.
Yep.
I find this incredibly kind of grisly and disturbing that you put out this video. Look at all these people dying.
Yeah.
President Trump terminates 11 Tren de Aragua narco terrorists.
They say.
Yes. Right. We haven't actually seen any evidence that that's what this boat was.
Hard to find the drugs now, Dave.
Very hard to find.
No, they've been blown sky high.
Very hard to find the drugs now. Okay. So they're putting up basically death porn and boasting about it. And the subtext to that is these people are less than human. Isn't it great that we killed them? Now, Congress has not authorized the use of military force against drug traffickers. There was a secret executive order signed by Trump, the New York Times reported earlier in the summer, suggesting that the military should be able to use lethal force against drug traffickers. Now, in terms of this incident, so Pete Hegseth had suggested
Good old Pete.
that the authority to launch an airstrike like this actually lay with the local military commanders, right? So he said that it was the people with boots on the ground, or I assume it's not boots on the ground in international waters, but this is 18 Corona lunch speaking.
Yeah.
That they were the ones who would have the ability to actually authorize this. Now, Trump has said that he personally ordered the destruction of that boat.
Yes.
Now, who knows whether that's true or not?
Rubio says he did.
Yeah.
Rubio says that Trump was given the option of conducting a maritime interdiction, but he elected to blow up the vessel instead to send a message.
Right. Okay. Now, if that's true, that obviously contradicts what Pete Hegseth said.
It can't be true then.
When Pete, well,
he never lies.
When Pete Hegseth was confronted with this, he said, "Oh no, I never said that. All I said was we smoked a drug boat, and now there are 11 narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean."
Oh God,
he's so pathetic. He's kind of symptomatic of the general trend in this administration of doing everything as if they are trying to impress the most hardcore Call of Duty players in the world of 15-year-olds. And the thing is, they never succeed. Yeah. They never actually come across the way that they want to come across.
Along those lines,
yep.
if you can stumble across the video of the Pete and Bobby challenge, have a look at how Pete does chin-ups. He does just like a 14-year-old trying to impress other 14-year-olds.
Yes.
He can't do proper chin-ups.
Yes, yeah, and failing.
Such a cheat.
This is the key point, and always failing. Yeah, to impress. So anyway, now, obviously just the general grotesquerie of this aside, this raises huge legal issues because they are not killing enemy combatants. They're killing civilians who are potentially, we don't even know, involved in illegal activity. Capital punishment does not exist for being involved in the drug trade in the United States. And the way that they've tried to get around this is by, declaring that this organisation are terrorists. But once again, there hasn't been any congressional authorisation of the use of military force.
Yeah.
Now, some Latin American countries have understandably been pretty outraged about this, foremost, of course, Venezuela. One of the points that the Venezuelan spokesperson made was that the people who would have been on that boat, right, they're not the major drug traffickers. They're not the kingpins. They're not the ones who are making enormous amounts of profits. These are probably very poor, probably very young, probably pretty desperate people who are couriers.
Can I tell you a more fundamental problem than that?
Yeah.
These guys are likely not delivering drugs to America.
Yeah.
Number one,
yes.
The drug which America supposedly is concerned about is fentanyl. There is zero fentanyl in Venezuela.
Yes.
It's cocaine.
Yeah.
Secondly, that's to the extent that this is emergency terrorism, etc. It's all about fentanyl.
Yes.
But in this case, that wasn't fentanyl.
No.
But secondly, Venezuela doesn't tend to be the country where America's cocaine comes from.
No.
They tend to deliver cocaine to Europe.
Yes.
America's cocaine tends to come from Colombia.
Yes.
So odds are that boat wasn't going to America.
Yeah.
They were blowing up drug smugglers. If they were drug smugglers,
yes,
they were blowing up drug smugglers who were on their way to Europe.
Yes.
So it's a very, very strange operation.
Yes. And Colombia, not surprisingly, has also spoken out very strongly about this, calling it murder.
Well, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. I was just going to say, I would almost, I'm probably a bit more, I am sympathetic at times, with the law enforcement and stuff. And I understand there are times when things happen that you're not thrilled with. But That was not a last resort. That was
No.
a first resort.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like they had all the options in the world there, and they chose the one to kill people.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
anyway.
I am not sympathetic to this shit at all. I'm not sympathetic to any of the war on drugs at all. During the Trump administration, the problem of Americans wanting and consuming drugs from other countries has been completely displaced onto those other countries. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, treated as some kind of foreign invasion rather than a simple problem of American demand being fulfilled by foreign supply.
I should also back over what you said before.
Yeah.
About the fact, even if they were terrorists,
Yes.
like they'll designate a foreign terrorist organization, Trendaragua.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's assume they're from Trendaragua. We
Yeah.
got no idea. But even if they were, that doesn't mean you can just kill them.
No.
The administration assumes that if they're terrorists, you can kill them. That was what happened with Soleimani. They declared it a foreign terrorist organization, so then they kill them. But that's not the law. The law doesn't say that. That's just the administration says that.
Yeah.
And they can declare anyone terrorists. They can declare anyone. I mean, they have. They've declared people who vandalize Teslas as terrorists.
Yeah, yeah.
Those guys they just blew out sky high.
Yes.
They say the same things about that they said about people vandalizing
Yes.
Teslas. Just think about that. I'm not saying that they're going to blow up with drones, people vandalizing Teslas. I'm just saying
Yeah, yeah.
there's a real slippery slope happening at the moment, and we're only at the top of it.
Yes.
Yeah, anyway, go on.
Just in general, what level of national sickness are we at now that the White House is putting out videos of people getting killed and bragging about it?
That's a fair call. Although I would say it's slightly less level of sickness than the pointing out the video of the El Salvador imprisonership and bragging about that.
Yes.
I haven't seen anything like that for
Yeah.
a real long time.
Like, who is this administration actually for? Like, what? Yes, what is this feeding? Like, nothing good. Yeah. The next question is, how much is this a harbinger of more military action against drug cartels?
They say there's going to be more.
They say there
They're
is going to be a
promising
lot
more.
more. Yes. Now, Rubio, who's just been in Ecuador, said, well, we won't do this to countries that are cooperating with us.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and which might explain the very muted response from most Latin American countries to this, or the fact that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago seemed to think it was pretty good. Yeah, like, please don't do this to us. Yeah. Nobody's life in the United States was improved by that, apart from people who like watching death porn. It is a genuine golden age for people who like watching death porn in the United States, because the White House is now putting out videos like that.
And they're very high production value. If you like death porn.
Yeah.
Lucky can't believe I'm going down this road. You should be used to me by now, Lucky. But, you got anything else to say about the Venezuela vote?
No.
I've only got one other thing to say, which is the thing. I mean, there are so many things we could point to about problems with this, but to me, the thing that is most glaring is that the lawyers must have said yes to this.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is that there is now exactly what. Remember last week I played that clip of the conservative judicial academic saying that the whole Department of Justice from top to bottom is just blown through, apart from
Solicitor General's office.
Solicitor General's office. Yeah, this tells me it's the same in the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
There is zero resistance.
Absolutely.
If Trump wants people to shoot protesters in the kneecaps, it's going to happen. No lawyer is going to say no.
Yeah.
They just said yes to blatant murder.
Yeah.
Like, there is just no legal argument for that at all. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go into details of the legals on this one because it's just so obviously there's nothing to it. It's just I could just go, well, here's what the law says. They've just ignored it. So I'm not going to waste your time.
No, don't.
Yeah, it just, but there clearly is just no lawyer providing any resistance at all now in the Department of Defense. So We've been warned. We're on notice. CDC sacking, Dave. This might be our last topic. All right. Okay, so the background to this. First of all, it started with the FDA releasing new rules for getting COVID shots about 2 weeks ago. RFK tweeted out the emergency use authorizations for COVID vaccines, once used to justify broad mandates on the general public during the Biden administration, are now rescinded. FDA has now issued marketing authorization for those at higher risk. Moderna, 6+ months, Pfizer, 5+, and Novavax, 12+. These vaccines are available for all patients who choose them after consulting with their doctors. Not quite. You need to show you're a high-risk individual to that doctor. Admittedly, what's defined as a high risk is extremely broad. To most people.
Yes.
Being over 65, being non-white, having asthma, cancer, chronic kidney disease, chronic lung disease, chronic liver disease, diabetes, heart conditions, HIV, mood disorders, depression, dementia, Parkinson's disease, obesity, physical inactivity, pregnancy, smoking, use of corticosteroids and other immunosuppressive medications. If you don't have one of those things, you're not American. They should just send you to Uganda straight away. Just go straight to Uganda. They speak English there, I discovered from a correspondence. Sorry about that, it's implying that they don't. But in all seriousness, there are plenty of lung weaknesses that would not fall under that. I wouldn't fall under that. I've got seriously weak lungs. When I got COVID, I could barely breathe.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be covered by any of them.
No.
So it is an issue. And number two, it isn't the risk factors that are the main issue anyway. It's having to prove you're eligible for the COVID shot to a doctor. That's the issue. For many people, that will be easy, but not for everyone. Some may have to find a doctor who can prescribe it to them off-label. The effort may make people not bother, which is obviously the point. It's also not clear how this will affect the costs of the shot and the insurance reimbursements for that shot. Anyway, so that's the first thing that happened 2 weeks ago. Then last week we heard there was going to be a safety review of COVID shots, which I got no problems with that in theory. Safety reviews, they're good. The science has never settled as far as I'm concerned. You keep on examining, keep on re-examining. Absolutely. That's how science works. Especially if you're a regulatory body, keep on re-examining.
Yes.
Sure. It's who RFK put in charge of the subcommittee that is of most interest to me. It's a guy called Recep Levy, who was a management and health analytics expert at MIT. He's not like an idiot or anything, but just what he's best known for is calling the COVID shot the most failing medicinal product in the history of medical products. He's the guy in charge of the review. So he seems, number one, prone to exaggeration, and he seems quite biased.
Yes.
Do you think I'm being unfair to poor old Recep Levy? Well, let's put it this way. He has promised to be open-minded on the task force, on one hand. But on the other hand, the tweet he's chosen to pin on his Twitter profile while he is reviewing the safety of COVID shots is this tweet saying, the evidence is mounting and indisputable that mRNA vaccines cause serious harm, including death, especially among young people. We have to stop giving them immediately. That's your neutral reviewer for you right there. Now, even if the fix wasn't in, there is no doubt, obviously, why RFK picked him. He wants the fix to be in. And if Recep Levy is being open-minded, that will disappoint RFK, undoubtedly. Okay, so they're the two stories that happened directly before this one. Right? And this all comes in the context of CDC employees becoming increasingly concerned about RFK encouraging cranks after an anti-vaxxer shot up the CDC building 200 times. They've got crack security there, obviously. They actually end up killing a police officer, that person, probably the one person who tried to stop him. And it is a miracle he didn't kill more people. Also, the CDC, literally the day before all this shit, scaled back a program monitoring food contaminants because they didn't have enough funding to track all the pathogens. Okay. And I should also note that RFK promised radical transparency at the HHS, but he recently didn't just sack the communications team, but closed down the freedom of information offices of the CDC and FDA, which is interesting. Anyway. I also, one more thing. The national background is even worse at the moment because in Florida, they are literally ending all vaccine mandates for school children. Did you see that one?
Yes.
Yeah, any vaccine at all. Measles, polio, doesn't matter. This is their Surgeon General the other day.
What I'm most excited about is an announcement that we're going to make, that we're making now, which is that the Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Okay? Who am I as a government, or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right.
That same guy, by the way, supports people's right to drink raw milk.
Yes.
Just so you know, Florida is currently suffering a E. coli outbreak in raw milk. 7 people have been hospitalized this year for drinking it. So that's the background. Do you have any comments to make before we move on? Okay, all right. Then we heard the CDC head, Susan Malaise, was sacked. She'd only had the job for less than a month. She only received 51 votes from the Senate. The Dems had serious doubts about her, as it turns out. And I have to say, I found them holding her up as some kind of hero over the last week a bit unsavoury, given how little they trusted her a month earlier. It seemed opportunist, has to be declared.
It did seem pretty opportunistic.
But she was never seen as an RFK acolyte.
No.
She was at least not by people who weren't Democrats. She was a long-time government scientist who gradually was promoted to the position over time. She had a PhD in microbiology and immunology, and she conducted research on developing technologies aimed for the treatment of infectious diseases. So she was qualified for the role. In fact, she only received the position because RFK's first choice, Dave Weldon, couldn't get numbers in the Senate. Okay. Now, we're not sure of exactly what led to her being sacked, but the Washington Post and Politico have both had fairly detailed pieces about it. They suggested that RFK pressed Malaise for days to support his rescission of those COVID vaccine approvals I described before, and she refused to do so until she consulted with her advisors. According to Politico, RFK told her that her leadership had displayed incompetence and he asked her to resign. Washington Post said he urged her to resign for not supporting President Trump's agenda. So they have different reasons there. Either way, Malaise refused and RFK offered an alternative. Fire senior CDC leadership officials instead and accept the updated vaccine recommendations from ACIP. For the record, when she was appointed a month ago, RFK said she was a public health expert with unimpeachable scientific credentials and a long-time champion of MAHA values.
Wow.
Not for nothing. Malaise did not choose either option.
Nope.
She went to Senator Bill Cassidy instead, the chair of the Senate Health Committee, for help. And he pushed back on RFK's demands, which, to be fair, understandably pissed RFK off. She went over his head. I can understand him being pissed off. And that was when his position on her hardened even further. HHS then announced that she was gone, tweeting out, Susan Malaise is no longer director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And her lawyers, Mark Zaid and Abby Lau, who seems to be everyone's lawyer these days, released a statement. Secretary Cannery and HHS have set their sights on weaponizing public health for political gain and putting millions of American lives at risk when CDC Director Susan Malaise refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. She chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that reason, she's been targeted. Dr. Malaise has neither resigned nor received notification from the White House that she's been fired. And as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign. And the White House spokesperson said, well, as her attorney's statement makes clear, abundantly clear, Susan Malaise is not aligned with the president's agenda of making America healthy again. Since she refused to resign, despite informing HHS leadership of her intent to do so, the White House has terminated Malaise from her position from the CDC. Malaise insisted she hadn't been properly fired because Trump didn't do it. So Trump explicitly
Did it.
fired her.
Yes.
That's the end of that. Then there were 4 more high-ranking officials who resigned in her wake, possibly the same 4 high-ranking officials RFK wanted her to sack
Yes,
anyway.
I would imagine.
So they're probably not missing out on much by resigning. They probably read the writing on the wall. Chief Medical Officer Deborah Huri, Dimitri Daskalakis, Director of the National Centre for Immunisation and Respiratory Disease, Daniel Jernigan, Director of the National Centre for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases, and Dr. Jennifer Lydon, Director of the Office of Public Health Data, Surveillance and Technology. Now, I don't know much about these guys, but I do know Dr. Dimitri was possibly MAGA's favourite piñata for the last 2 years, because he likes putting fairly sexualized BDSM / and or pentagrammy type photos of himself online. Like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. None of them are particularly shocking or wild, but look, I'll be honest. I don't know what you think, Dave. I don't think that's the greatest idea for a health bureaucrat to do. Because at the very least, it signals that you want to play in the culture war space. And
good point.
And I don't think that's helpful for someone whose job it is to encourage A, nonpartisan unity.
Yes.
And B, if your job is to get people to pick up vaccines, think about the kind of people who are anti-vaccines. That's probably not going to win them over.
Yeah.
So what do you care more about? Do you care more about getting people to have vaccines, or do you care more about flaunting your sexuality? You have the right to flaunt your sexuality, but it's just a question of your priorities.
Yes. Yep.
So anyway, that's my view on that. I mean, I have to be careful about that because I don't want people to think I'm actually on the social conservative side and being anti-gay or anything like that. I'm not. I just think it's just about choose how to do your job the best.
Yes. Yep.
I would say.
Yep.
Anyway, letters from 3 of those have been those people have been released, which are highly critical of RFK, and there have been some very specific allegations made by some of them that I think are especially damning of RFK, in particular this one from Dr. Dimitri.
I think that an important thing to ask the secretary is, has he been ever briefed by a CDC expert on anything, specifically measles, COVID-19, flu? I think that people should ask him that in that hearing.
What would the answer to that be?
So the answer is no. So no one from my center has ever briefed him on any of those topics.
Really?
So I don't know where he's getting his, really.
No one has ever briefed him on any of those issues that you just mentioned there, including measles, given the outbreak in the United States right now?
He's getting information from somewhere. Yeah, he's getting information from somewhere, but that information is not coming from CDC experts who really are the world's experts in this area. Like, folks from around the world call us with questions around these infections. And we are seen as the expert. CDC is seen as the expert in these areas. CDC is the preeminent public health organization, I'm going to say, in the world. And he's not taking us up on several offers to brief him on these very important topics.
Why do you think that is?
On the issue, I don't know the answer. Perhaps he has alternate experts that he may trust more than the experts at CDC that the rest of the world regards as the best scientists in the areas.
Now, to be clear, I understand RFK may not trust this guy, but does he not trust anyone at all in the building? Because this is what RFK said.
We need to stop trusting the experts, right? We were told at the beginning of COVID, don't look at any data yourself. Don't do any investigation yourself. Just trust the experts. And trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It's a feature of religion, and it's a feature of totalitarianism.
I reckon that sums up RFK's issues perfectly. He puts the word experts in inverted commas. The experts aren't gods, obviously. They can be wrong. They often are. But you should at least listen to them before you dismiss them. And when you do dismiss them, you better have some pretty good evidence.
Yes.
Because the odds are those people who you're dismissing, who specialize in this stuff, have spent much longer studying this stuff and thinking about this stuff than you have. And it's hubris for someone like RFK, in my view, to think he knows so much more than people who've spent decades studying this shit that he doesn't even need to hear from them before he just ignores them and sacks them. Dave, go for it.
Science is a social and cumulative activity. Right? It is based on understanding and building on things that other people have previously found. And as you said, all evidence has to be assessed and reassessed and replicated. That's not what RFK is doing. What RFK is doing is encouraging people to go out there and find something somewhere that confirms your pre-existing view. That's what he's encouraging people to do. That is not science. That is kind of solitary searching for evidence to support what you want to do. Science, as I said, it's accumulative, it's a social activity, and unfortunately, it's a very expensive enterprise because it's huge. It involves a lot of people working often in very expensive ways on a lot of stuff. Now, the fact that science involves so much money is one of the things that creates distrust about it in people, because a lot of that money comes from institutions that people don't like, whether it's the federal government, whether it's universities, whether it's big pharma, whether it's the military-industrial complex. Yes, all of these bodies contribute to scientific research, and certainly in the case of big pharma, sure, they're not in it for nothing. Right. No, and, and I can completely understand why when people look at an argument, they basically look at which side is the money on. Okay, I don't trust that side of it. But I just want to make clear exactly where RFK is coming from. This is an ultra-wealthy Californian's view of health, right? This is somebody who, because of his immense wealth and privilege, has never really actually had to worry about his own health that much, because he will always be taken care of. If something goes wrong, he will always be able to afford to take care of himself, which buys him the luxury of just being able to invent his own sort of ideology of wellness, which is shared with a lot of other people in his ilk, where he mistakes his own good fortune and privilege for some kind of superior wisdom, insight into what makes somebody naturally healthy, right? And it's no surprise that he's also obsessed with genetics as well, because, these are people who tend to see themselves as winners of the genetic lottery, right? So this is not the position of the average American who is, potentially $400 away from a medical bankruptcy crisis, right? This is not the position of somebody who has to rely on public health institutions and on public health advice. When Katie Atwell and I were studying the views of anti-vaxxers, one sort of overwhelming thing that we found was this view that they believed that they were in alignment with nature, and that they believed that mass society in general was just very unhealthy. Now, there are all kinds of people who can hold these kinds of views, including people who are living, complete subsistence agriculture lives. But he represents the wealthy strand of that. And a huge part of it is just snobbery. It's this contempt for people who rely on things like medicine, public hospitals, health advice, public schools, schooling in general, processed food, food that doesn't come from, within 500 meters of your house or wherever you think that it has to be sourced. It's actually a form of cultural politics that the MAGA crowd in general is pretty hostile to. It's really interesting that they've accepted RFK in this way, when classically RFK's politics are associated with what used to be referred to as limousine liberals. RFK has absolutely no qualifications for this job. He is an environmental lawyer. All he has is this vast, undeserved self-confidence that comes from being born into the most famous family in America. That is all that you are seeing every time he makes his authoritative pronouncements. I can't be wrong because I'm RFK. That's all I have to say about this shit.
Well, I think it's slightly unfair, Dave, because RFK also has the ability to diagnose children just by looking at them.
Yes, he does.
And I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection. And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look.
Children in airports look bored. What a surprise!
Dave, you're not seeing the big picture. How much money can we save in health spending by just sending RFK to walk up and down the streets, just diagnosing as he goes?
Mitochondrial!
Bang, bang, mitochondrial problems. Mitochondria, not too bad, and so on. It'd be awesome. And like, it doesn't end there. He's got all kinds of amazing observations. Have a look at this. This is him talking about vaccinated kids.
And I will tell you this, that every child is damaged. 54%, those are the kids who made insurance claims. What about the kids who lost IQ, 1 or 2 points, who are depressed, who are not functioning, who are socially awkward? All of these injuries that are invisible from the vaccines. We know, you know, if you've ever compared an unvaccinated kid to a vaccinated kid, you see the bright eyes and the engagement and the social interactions and the curiosity and the affection and you compare them. A child even had 1 or 2 vaccines and they're completely different. And those injuries don't get measured. They're just a blight on this, and they poisoned an entire generation of American children.
See, once again, he can just observe, bang, you've been vaccinated, you haven't been vaccinated, just by looking at them.
See, I think the figure that I'm remembering from the research that I did with Katie is that in the US, I think something like 93% of children are vaccinated in terms of basically having the complete vaccinated schedule. So that 93% of children are just dead-eyed zombies with no curiosity. It's the 7% unvaccinated who are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
93%, Dave, have mitochondrial challenges. Okay, my question to you now is where is this going?
Nowhere good is where it's going.
Yeah.
What he is doing is reducing vaccination to an issue of sort of personal taste. And he makes this big thing about, well, if you want your vaccines, you can still have them. Right. But he's doing everything he can to undermine advice about that recommends vaccines. In some places, as we've seen with the COVID vaccine, where the pharmacies can actually stock them and whether insurance companies can pay for them is in about a dozen states actually limited by whether it's recommended by the CDC, which means that in a lot of places, if it's only limited to people over the age of 65, then people can't get it at all. So he's turning it, because you might think, well, just saying vaccination is a personal choice, that's fine. He's turning it into a personal choice that is stigmatized, that is not institutionally supported, that is not going to be supported by advice. This is going to lower vaccination rates. Now, for very healthy people, okay, maybe that's not going to matter so much. It's going to matter for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree, and it's going to get worse, and I'll tell you why. ACIP is scheduled to meet on September 18. That's their advice panel.
Yes.
It's going to be making more vaccine recommendations. This time there's going to be no one in charge of the CDC working to restrain them and influence them, which is what Malaise was trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that we hear that apparently RFK is hoping to pull the Pfizer and Moderna COVID vaccines entirely from the US market. Also, according to Jeremy Fowle's Substack, RFK has just ordered the CDC to appoint 7 more, shall we say, special people onto the ACIP panel before this meeting. Senator Bill Cassidy has suggested delaying the meeting, but that'll be worse because then you've got what you just described. 16 states have laws prohibiting pharmacies from handing out vaccines.
Yeah.
They have not received ACIP's recommendation.
Yeah.
So that would maybe even worse. And this is the head of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Oz.
Today, there was an announcement in Florida that they will move to end all childhood vaccine mandates in the state. That came from Governor DeSantis this afternoon, and it's in conjunction with the state Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo. What is your reaction to that, and do you agree with that? Would you recommend the same thing to your patients?
I would definitely not have mandates for vaccinations.
That is the guy in charge of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The next few years in vaccines are going to be interesting, Dave. Also, we already flagged this would happen, and it's now happening. Competing health bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Pritzker's health department in Illinois is exploring the possibility of purchasing COVID-19 vaccines in bulk, straight from manufacturers, creating their own rules for who can get them in Illinois. A coalition of blue states led by Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey is coordinating the purchase and distribution of a bunch of vaccines, pediatric vaccines. And California, Oregon, and Washington have joined forces to create a health alliance. They're going to set their own vaccine immunization recommendations separate from CDC recommendations.
Yep.
Newsom says California, Oregon, and Washington will not allow the people of our states to be put at risk. I understand why all of those people are doing that, but this is not a good result.
No, it's a bad result.
Competing health bureaucracies.
Yeah.
And RFK also reckons next month he's curing autism as well.
The autism is such a tremendous horror show, what's happening in our country and some other countries, but mostly our country. How are you doing on that?
We are doing very well. We will have announcements as promised in September. We're finding certain interventions now that are clearly, almost certainly causing autism. And we're going to be able to address those in September.
We've spoken about this a bit already. We've spoken about how the time he allotted himself to do the research wasn't even a fraction of what it would take to do proper research. It's been about 4 months. What he set out to do would take a decade to do properly. His lead researcher was a guy called David Geyer, who's obsessed with linking vaccines to autism. RFK just surrounds himself with people who say what he wants to hear. And his new acting CDC head is a former tech investor who worked closely with Peter Thiel. He has no scientific or medical background. He's got a master's degree in humanities. He was appointed Deputy Secretary of Health in June by RFK, this Jim O'Neill character. I made that point in Plain America. I got a lot of people writing in the comments, who cares if he doesn't have a scientific background? Lots of secretaries don't have backgrounds in the subject they're tapped to administrate. That's true. The last health secretary was Xavier Becerra. He's got nothing to do with health. But I think being the head of the CDC is different.
Yes,
that's a specialised position. That's a research position. And this guy's obviously a conspiracy theorist. He says things like, the name COVID was chosen to conceal the origin of the virus. The name made it harder to study and probably slowed the response. No wonder RFK loves the guy. Also, he happens to have the exact opposite views about drugs that RFK does. He argued in 2014 that drugs should be allowed onto the market before even determining that they work. He said, let people start using them at their own risk. Let's prove of efficacy after they've been legalized. Now, RFK is the one who thinks we should be super careful with drugs, with safety of drugs. So why doesn't this guy bother RFK? Because RFK only cares about one thing. Are you on his side about COVID vaccines?
Yeah.
That's the only thing he gives a damn about. And just one more little thing. The FDA has approved fewer new drugs this year than for decades.
Yep.
They're on track for 39. Anyway, so got any other thoughts about any of this, Dave, that you'd like to throw in there?
Nope, other than it's very depressing.
It is extremely depressing. I'm going to leave you, Dave, for this PEP with something to pick you up. And unlike you, my pickups aren't trivia questions that make your brain hurt. My pickups are funny clips. I'm going to remind you, Dave, that there are worse Kennedys out there.
Yep.
This is Senator John Kennedy from this week.
This is a photograph of the alien from the movie Alien. This is what you could end up looking like if you eat some of the raw, frozen shrimp being sent to the United States by other countries. If you eat it, how could you end up looking like the alien in the Alien? Because the shrimp was radioactive. I kid you not.
So there you go, Dave.
He just gets better with age.
Kennedy's,
like a fine wine.
Kennedy's can always get worse, Dave. Thank you so much for joining me for this PEP, Dave. I will see you not next week.
Not next week.
Week after.
Yes.
Next week's going to be Melina Madness.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
See you later.
Stay peppy.
Stay peppy.